Chapter 2771. Conditions of unsealing. The droplet of essence blood must be retrieved, Getty said powerlessly. The essence blood was just too important. It was something that could affect the fate of his entire race. Getty could not bear the consequences if it was not brought back. After all, he was in charge of this millennium. If the essence blood was lost during his rule, he would be held responsible. However, stealing the essence blood back from a regional king life-devouring beast was anything but easy. As a matter of fact, if he handled it badly, it was even possible for him, Getty, to die in the process. Hallmaster, should we report this to the Emperor? With the situation right now, we can only ask the Emperor to step in. If the Emperor leads the experts of our 10 divine halls into the 2 world mountains, we'll definitely be able to retrieve it, said Vice Hall Master Duff. Getty shook his head. He was worried. It's not like you don't know the Emperor's currently undertaking something extremely important in seclusion right now. Disturbing the Emperor would truly be a horrible decision. Moreover, if the Emperor really does end up leading the 10 Hall Masters into the 2 world mountains, the other Hall Masters will definitely resent us for that. Getty dismissed the idea without hesitation. He was an expert who attached great importance to his pride. He would never want to do something so humiliating unless he truly ran out of choices. He did not want any more disputes with other Hall Masters. Otherwise, they would mercilessly label him as useless or trash when they sneered and mocked him. Hall Master, an envoy of the 5th Divine Hall has come to visit. At this moment, a God King guard rushed in from outside and dropped down on one knee. An envoy of the 5th Divine Hall? Getty frowned and he immediately became fed up. He had never been on great terms with the 5th Divine Hall, holding resentment towards them. And this resentment had grown with the conflicts and matters that had arisen from how unreasonably their Hall Master, Kuan-Tion, had behaved after losing his memories. As a result, as soon as he heard that an envoy from the 5th Divine Hall had come to visit, he was tempted to order the guard to chase him away. But in the end, Getty chose not to do that, or he would probably be labeled as petty. He made a gesture for the guard to let the envoy in. The envoy sent by the 5th Divine Hall was a God King old man. He was well-groomed and there was a wise light to his eyes. Clearly, he was a capable person. Greetings to the 7th Hall Master and the Vice Hall Masters from Wu Ming, the Master of External Affairs of the 5th Divine Hall. Wu Ming stuck to courtesy and bowed to them politely. Even though he knew his Hall Master had always been on bad terms with Getty, he also knew the disputes was not something a mere God King like him could get involved in. If you have something to say, spit it out, and if you're done, scram. You people of the 5th Divine Hall have no right to be standing in my territory, Getty said impatiently. If it were not for the fact that people would end up talking behind his back, he really did not want to meet with the envoy of the 5th Divine Hall. Wu Ming remained extremely polite. He cut right to the chase. Esteemed 7th Hall Master, I've come under the orders of my Hall Master. My Hall Master demands the 7th Divine Hall to remove the seals on the teleportation formation and allow the outsiders to come and go freely. Wu Ming was already mentally prepared to weather the incoming storm from what he said. He felt powerless too. He did not want to be so blunt, but the 5th Hall Master had clearly ordered him to repeat exactly what he had said to Getty. As a result, he could only bite the bullet and do it. Just as expected, Getty's expression changed as soon as he heard that. His gaze became hostile instantly. His sharp gaze was like 2 pairs of swords, which made Wu Ming shiver all over. Getty erupted. What did you say? Demands? Kuan-Tion's actually demanding this Hall Master? Getty was unable to repress his anger. He slammed his hand against the armrest of the throne heavily and the tremendous force made the entire hall shake. He roared furiously, he's gone too far. Kuan-Tion's gone too far. Does he really think he's above me now just because he's broken through to the 6th heavenly layer? He's far too haughty. He's not even taking me seriously. Guards, throw the envoy out for me. No, seal his cultivation and directly throw him off the Divine Hall. Make him lay on the streets of the capital city below helplessly. Kuan-Tion, I've put up with you so many times already. Does you really think I'm afraid of you, to actually demand more and more from me? Getty's face had darkened as his anger blazed inside. He was unable to calm down for quite a long while. Hold on, Hall Master. I have an idea, but I don't know if it'll work. The Vice Hall Master Duff said, doesn't the fifth Divine Hall want the Hall Master to remove the seals over the teleportation formation? The Hall Master can use this opportunity to request the fifth Divine Hall to retrieve the item in the Two World Mountains for us, as a condition for unsealing the teleportation formation. Hearing that, Geddy was slightly taken aback despite fuming just earlier. In the next moment, his anger subsided completely and glee filled his face. He clapped his hands violently and his eyes lit up. All right. That's an extremely good idea. We'll go with that. Afterwards, Geddy immediately stated his condition and sent Wu Ming back. In the fifth Divine Hall, Jian Chen sat boldly on the Hall Master's throne as Bing Yuan, Taro and Dou Wujin stood beside each other below him. Behind them, kneeling on the ground was the Master of External Affairs, Wu Ming. Wu Ming had already reported Geddy's conditions to Jian Chen word for word. Before Jian Chen could say anything, Bing Yuan already began to sneer. Oof, Geddy sure is thoughtful. He's lost the essence blood during his reign, so their seventh Divine Hall should have been responsible for retrieving it. Yet, it turns out that Geddy's afraid of dying and he's too scared to retrieve something from the possession of a regional king life-devouring beast, so he wants our fifth Divine Hall to handle it instead. Does he really take our fifth Divine Hall to be fools? While Taro and Dou Wujin remained silent, both of them sneered as well. They mocked Geddy's foolishness for trying to get their fifth Divine Hall to undertake such a great risk over something as insignificant as unsealing a teleportation formation. If this was not foolishness, what was it then? Jian Chen sat on the throne calmly and silently. He did not decline immediately. Instead, thoughts flashed through his eyes. Who knew what he was thinking about? Wu Ming, you can go. You can ignore the seventh Divine Hall's request. Bing Yuan waved his hand to dismiss Wu Ming. There was no need for any more discussions on this. All of them knew exactly what risk the Two World Mountains entailed. Hold on, Wu Ming. You can tell the seventh Divine Hall that I'll agree to their condition. However, they must immediately unseal the teleportation formation, Jian Chen said suddenly. Bing Yuan, Taro and Dou Wujin all leapt in fright. Their expressions changed drastically and said in a hurry, Hall Master, you mustn't. You mustn't go through with this. The dangers of the Two World Mountains are unimaginable. Apart from the Emperor, any primordial realm expert of our race, including the Hall Masters of the 10 Divine Halls, face the risk of dying if they set foot in there. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2772, Returning to the Two World Mountains. 1. Bing Yuan, Taro and Dou Wujin all did their best to convince Jian Chen otherwise. They all thought their Hall Master had lost his memories, completely forgetting about the dangers of the Two World Mountains, so they explained just how dangerous and just how terrifying the mountains were in detail to Jian Chen. Basically, all their descriptions clearly disclosed a single piece of information. As long as they were a member of the Dark Star race, their lives would be in danger if they entered the Two World Mountains, even if they possessed great strength at the sixth heavenly layer of Infinite Prime. As a matter of fact, anyone from the Dark Star race who entered the Two World Mountains had a chance to die, apart from the Dark Star Emperor. The 10 Hall Masters were no exceptions either. Listening to the Vice Hall Masters describe just how terrifying the Two World Mountains were, Jian Chen was secretly surprised. He knew the Two World Mountains could suppress the Dark Star race, but he never thought the suppression would be so powerful, enough for primordial realm experts to pale in fright. However, Jian Chen had already made up his mind about venturing to the Two World Mountains. No one could change that. That was because He Chanxian and the others had already reclaimed the 100 Saint City. He had wanted to check on the situation since a very long time ago. Just as he was troubled over the lack of an appropriate opportunity, he never expected Geddy would instead provide him the chance. With that, he could use going to the Two World Mountains to retrieve the essence blood as an excuse to shed his identity, which was a perfectly reasonable excuse to make Kun Tian vanish for a while. He was basically deceiving everyone flawlessly. As for retrieving the essence blood of the divine beast, Jianqin knew that even if he refused to do so, the Darkstar race would still bring it back regardless of the cost. After all, the Darkstar Emperor was an expert with battle prowess on par to chaotic primes. Jianqin met many chaotic primes in the Saints' world, so he knew just too well just how terrifying their battle prowess was. A tremendous difference definitely existed between chaotic primes and infinite primes. With the Darkstar Emperor's strength, he might not have been enough to unleash a massacre in the Two World Mountains, but retrieving a single droplet of essence blood would be just too easy. However, Jianqin also bore in mind that he was a hall master with a lofty status. If he risked his own life to venture into the Two World Mountains just to undo the seal for the outsiders, it would seem slightly illogical in everyone's eyes. As a result, he needed another reason if he wanted to enter the Two World Mountains. He sat silently on the hall master's throne in thought for a while, before saying, "Actually, the reason why I've decided to enter the Two World Mountains is not just because of Getty's condition. When I broke through in the land of soul destruction, I seem to have unwittingly fused with a fraction of the memories from the planetary beast." "What? Hall Master, you've gained some of the planetary beast's memories?" Bing Yuan, Taro and Dou Wujin immediately became shocked. They stared at Jianqin with widened eyes as surprise, disbelief and joy flooded their faces. Among the Darkstar race, there had always been a legend where it was possible to obtain memory fragments left behind by the planetary beast in the land of soul destruction. Unfortunately, the ancient records only listed a small handful of people who had actually managed to obtain the memory fragments in the lengthy history of the Darkstar race. However, without any exception, it was a tremendous fortuitous encounter for every single one of them who managed to obtain the memory fragments while still being able to cultivate normally. Of course, there were even more people who emerged from the land of soul destruction in a deranged state, blabbering nonsense. Perhaps a small fraction of these people had obtained something along the lines of the planetary beast's memories, but their souls were a mess and they had lost their minds. They were crippled for the rest of their lives and were no longer normal people. There's always been a rumor among our 10 divine halls that the reason why our emperor cultivates so quickly and is so terrifying in battle is because he also obtained memory fragments of the planetary beast when he cultivated in the land of soul destruction in the past, Bing Yuan murmured as his eyes shone brighter and brighter. The Darkstar Emperor had obtained memory fragments of the planetary beast in the land of soul destruction, while his hall master had obtained the same thing now. He knew exactly what this meant for their 5th divine hall. "I only absorbed a bit of the planetary beast's memory fragments. These fragments are very disorderly and very powerful too. They've been constantly affecting me. There have been many times when I've become uncertain about who I am under the influence of these fragments, but I just have a feeling that the information in the fragments are related to the Two World Mountains. As a result, I must pay a visit to the Two World Mountains," Jianqin said while in thought. This time, the 3 vice hall masters all remained silent. They looked at one another. They wanted to stop him, but they were unable to say anything now that this was related to the memory fragments of the planetary beast and a potential fortuitous encounter for their hall master. Jianqin continued, "If I've guessed correctly, then my strength should increase once I emerge from the Two World Mountains, and this increase should be very large. By then, shouldn't be an issue for me to overwhelm Getty by force." "Really? That's fantastic. Hall Master, the Two World Mountains is basically a land of fortune made for you. The Two World Mountains are worth visiting then." As soon as they heard how he could potentially overwhelm Getty, Bing Yuan, Taro and Dou Wujin were all overjoyed. They went from their initial objection to completely supporting his decision now. If their hall master could really overwhelm Getty, then the status of their 5th divine hall would immediately shoot up among the 10 divine halls. As vice hall masters, they would be able to hold their heads and chests even higher too. "You can all go. I'll prepare a little and set off for the Two World Mountains tomorrow morning." In the morning on the next day, Jianqin gave detailed orders to Bing Yuan regarding the matters of the 100 Saint City and strictly ordered the 3 vice hall masters to not become involved in any internal struggles of the 100 Saint City. Afterwards, he left the 5th divine hall and ventured to the Two World Mountains. Before he departed, he left the space ring with the droplet of the divine beast's essence blood in the fifth divine hall. He knew the essence blood had been contaminated with the aura of the Dark Star race, so from a certain perspective, it was possible to say that it had developed an obscure connection with the world which the Dark Star race resided in. If he took it with him, he could be discovered by the Dark Star race through secret techniques no matter how he hid himself, which would instead increase his risks of exposure. With a flash of the fifth divine hall's teleportation formation, Jian Qin vanished from there. Only the three vice hall masters remained outside, having sent him off. Let's go back. Remember to keep the hall master's journey to the two world mountains a secret. After sending off Jian Qin, the three vice hall masters returned to the divine hall too. However, what they failed to realize was that a guard posted beside the teleportation formation of the eighth divine hall nearby had been glancing over, perhaps by design. When Jian Qin vanished from the teleportation formation and the three vice hall masters had returned to the divine hall, the guard immediately left his post, entering the eighth divine hall to find the hall master Sun Ran. Hall master, the fifth hall master has left alone, with his destination unknown. The eighth hall master, Sun Ran, who sat on his throne with his legs crossed, slowly opened his eyes. He glanced in the direction of the fifth divine hall and waved his hand, dismissing the guard. After the guard had departed, the light in Sun Ran's eyes wavered. He murmured, "There had all been reasons for Kun Tian's departures from the fifth divine hall in the past few times, but he's left with no clear reason this time. Where is he going? To do what? Or should I say, the situation is really like what I suspected, and Kun Tian's obtained a fortuitous encounter in the land of soul destruction? If that really is the case, there's definitely a purpose for his departure this time." Eagerness appeared in Sun Ran's gaze, along with some well-disguised excitement. After monitoring him for so long, he's finally begun to move. Immediately investigate where Kun Tian had teleported to. Remember to keep it a secret. We can't let anyone find out. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2773, Returning to the Two World Mountains. 2. The Dark Night City was the closest to the Two World Mountains out of the 36 major cities of the Dark Star world. The Dark Night City had already recovered its former prosperity and liveliness now. The destruction caused by the startling battle earlier had already been completely repaired under the combined efforts of the cultivators of the Dark Star race. However, all the traces of age and aura left behind by time had vanished from the places that had been repaired. Everywhere gave off a shiny new luster. People flowed to and fro within the Dark Night City. Members of the Dark Star race mingled with the outsiders as business and transactions unfolded in an orderly manner. It seemed like the battle had never happened in the first place. The only difference was that the position of City Lord remained empty, while the positions of the 36 lords and 108 kings that served as the protector gods of the city had yet to be completely filled either. At the same time, there were still a lot of people discussing the recent, devastating battle with great interest in the various streets and alleyways, restaurants and inns in the city. However, most of the people who listened in were outsiders. Whenever they heard any information regarding the battle or an outsider called Gu Qi, their ears would prick up and they would listen carefully, as if they were afraid of missing even the slightest detail. Most of these outsiders had been sent over from the 100 Saint City. They only had a single mission, which was to do all that they could to gather information about Gu Qi throughout the entire Dark Star world, even including the Two World Mountains. The major organizations of the 100 Saint City had already heard about Gu Qi's battle in the Dark Night City. Now that the 100 Saint City was temporarily safe, these organizations all secretly sent out people to look for Gu Qi as they had nothing better to do. Gu Qi was an expert with devastating battle prowess. All of these clans were interested in roping in a person like him. There's so many people looking for me from the 100 Saint City? Though, I don't plan on using the identity of Gu Qi anymore, so it'll only be strange if they do find me. Jian Qin maintained his appearance of Kun Tian on the streets of the Dark Night City. However, he concealed all of his presence, strolling idly through the streets. No one recognized him. After all, the honorable appearance of the fifth hall master was not something regular cultivators could see. Coupled with the fact that his presence was concealed, he was completely inconspicuous within the crowd. This was even easier for him to be forgotten. After all, Kun Tian's appearance was not particularly special. The senses of his soul had already enveloped the entire city. He could see everything going on here, including the secret conversations between the cultivators from the 100 Saint City. Even those could not escape his powerful senses. I remember when I first came to Dark Knight City, I was still an outsider with a fake name. I even encountered difficulty trying to enter the city. Now, I've become one of the 10 lofty hall masters of the entire Darkstar race. You really can't be certain over what can end up happening. As he strolled through the streets, Jian Chen felt amazed inside. He was not in a hurry to enter the Two World Mountains. Instead, he strolled through the wide streets of the city at a steady pace, making a beeline for the city gates. Ever since he had arrived in the Darkstar world, he really had not spent the time to properly appreciate the customs and culture of this foreign land. Only when he arrived at the newly built city gates did Jian Chen set his thoughts aside. He shot off into the sky, directly flying towards the Two World Mountains. Soon after he had left, within the 8th Divine Hall in the capital city. Hall Master, we've already looked into it. The 5th Hall Master teleported to the Dark Knight City. The Dark Knight City, is it? I understand. You're dismissed. The 8th Hall Master, Sun Ren, slowly stood up from the throne. He paced around before the throne as the light in his eyes flickered rapidly. He was thinking of something. A while later, he seemed to make up his mind. He suddenly walked out of the 8th Divine Hall, before venturing to the Dark Knight City through the teleportation formation 2. The Two World Mountains were shrouded in a gray mist all year round. Standing outside, it was impossible to make out the mountain range's true appearance, which added a hunt-if mystery to the place. Cultivators constantly flowed in and out of the mountains. They basically formed small groups of 3s and 5s. Rarely did anyone travel alone. Without any exception, all of these cultivators were outsiders. As for cultivators of the Darkstar race, they would never set foot in the Two World Mountains unless they had no other option. The Darkstar race's demand for the corpses of life-devouring beasts has been growing recently. The price they offer is 2 or 3 times higher than before too. I wonder why they need so many corpses. Life-devouring beasts are rather good sources of food. The inns within the various cities of the Darkstar race have all been purchasing them. The prices of food made using life-devouring beasts is absolutely absurd. There aren't a lot of people who can actually afford them, so even under normal circumstances, there's quite a surplus. But the Darkstar race is now purchasing all of it recklessly at such a high price. Have you realized that more and more people have been entering the Two World Mountains recently? I don't think the Darkstar race is purchasing so many corpses for something as simple as food. They must have something else in mind. Even if they have something in mind, that's not for us to worry about. I only know that the corpse of an early overgod life-devouring beast can go for a star orchid now. Star orchids are worth nothing among the Darkstar race, but in the Saints' world, their value will multiply by several dozen or even 100 times. The various large organizations are all competing to buy them. I think we should use this opportunity to make a pretty nice sum. On the way to the Two World Mountains, the senses of Jian Chen's soul enveloped a region of several tens of million kilometers. Nothing in that region could escape his senses, so he obviously overheard the conversations of many outsiders. He knew this was for the great ceremony that the Darkstar race had begun preparing for a long time ago, which could change the fate of the entire race. The complicated process of the ceremony required large numbers of life-devouring beast corpses. As a result, the Darkstar race offered a high price to buy them, enticing many outsiders to enter the Two World Mountains to hunt life-devouring beasts for them. Darkstar race, oh Darkstar race. You've racked your brains, throwing tremendous amounts of financial and material resources into this great ceremony, just so you could weaken the suppression of the grand exalt of the wood spirit's will on you, allowing you to break the limits of cultivation and reach chaotic prime. Unfortunately, your great ceremony is destined for failure this time. Your only fault is that you've touched one of my people, Jianchen thought as he flew through the air. He did not feel any sympathy for the Dark Star race. The Dark Star race did all of this to increase their chances of success for the great ceremony. They actually wanted Sacred Feather to give up his life in this process. Just that was enough for Jianchen to utterly hate the Dark Star race. Swish. At the same time, Jianchen had already arrived near the Two World Mountains. He did not slow down at all, directly charging into the mountains with a whistle. He was swallowed by the thick mist in an instant. Soon after he had entered the Two World Mountains, a figure flew over rapidly. His presence was completely concealed. Even his body was illusionary. He seemed like a ghost. The figure stopped several hundred meters away from the mist of the Two World Mountains. He stared straight at the shrouded mountains ahead with a stern expression. He was the Hall Master of the 8th Divine Hall, Sun Ran. Through the powers of the 8th Divine Hall, he found Jianchen's tracks and tailed him all the way here. The only reason why he had not been detected was because he maintained his distance from Jianchen. Kun Tian's actually entered the Two World Mountains? That's strange. What's he entering the Two World Mountains for? Or should I say, he's learnt some secret about the Two World Mountains through the memories of the planetary beast he obtained in the land of soul destruction? If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2774. Confronted calmly, Sun Ran hesitated for a while outside the Two World Mountains. He was rather uncertain about entering the Two World Mountains. But in the end he still bit the bullet and rushed in boldly. Afterwards, he used his secret technique to sense the direction that Jianchen had traveled off in. He tailed behind him carefully. Sun Ran was clearly extremely fearful of the Two World Mountains. Even a Hall Master, a 5th heavenly layer infinite prime like him, had to be extremely cautious and careful in the outskirts of the Two World Mountains. And he even used a secret technique to erase all of his presence. He would tread lightly as he moved through the forest and mountains, afraid of creating any disturbance that would alarm the nearby life-devouring beasts. He had to do everything that he could to avoid any battles within the Two World Mountains. If he fought, it was possible for his presence to leak out. Even if only a tiny sliver leaked out, it would be infinitely magnified by the special environment of the Two World Mountains. In the end, all the regional king life-devouring beasts in the Two World Mountains would discover him and eventually surround him from all directions. By then, even if he was in the outskirts, the regional king life-devouring beasts would still pursue him relentlessly. This damned Two World Mountains and the damned ancestor of the wood spirits. As Sun Ran advanced carefully, he cursed inside. To think that a mighty Hall Master like him, who possessed such an honorable status within the Dark Star race, would have to resort to something like sneaking around. Clearly, this was extremely insulting to someone like him who dwelled at the top most of the time. Kun Tian, I've had to make a compromise and enter the Two World Mountains because of you. You have to give me a good surprise. Sun Ran was still a primordial realm expert after all. Even though he concealed his presence and treaded lightly, he still moved extremely quickly. Before long, he had passed through the outskirts and entered the depths of the Two World Mountains. Immediately, a powerful, restrictive force exerted itself on Sun Ran, passing through his body and ignoring all protective items, marking him deeply like a brand. He was unable to escape from it no matter what. Sun Ran immediately felt that circulating the energy in his body became even more tedious. The attacks he could usually launch without much effort now took several times the energy, and his energy depleted much faster now. It was not just his cultivation. Even his soul suffered from the same restriction. He felt like his soul was now covered in shackles. Not only would it be much more arduous whenever he used his soul, but the power of his soul would also be depleted several times or even dozens of times faster than usual. The suppression from the depths were several dozen times more severe than the outskirts. If God Kings of the Dark Star race entered the depths, the suppression they suffered would also be extremely severe, but it would not be as terrifying as what Sun Ran experienced right now. Once primordial realm experts set foot in here, the suppression would be startlingly powerful. Sun Ran was originally a fifth heavenly layer infinite prime, but now he had been forcefully suppressed to the strength of the second heavenly layer. Kun Tian is actually venturing even further still. Just where is he going? Behind, Sun Ran used some unknown, special secret technique to track Jian Chen's location as he felt excited inside. The Two World Mountains were a forbidden zone to cultivators of the Dark Star race. In particular, the depths were a forbidden zone that even primordial realm experts of the Dark Star race were reluctant to set foot in. Yet, not only had Kun Tian entered the depths, but he was even rapidly approaching the central region, which immediately made Sun Ran feel surprised and delighted, feeling like he had discovered some great secret. However, Sun Ran failed to sense the changes that occurred when he entered the depths. When the various aspects of his abilities became severely restricted, the indiscernible senses of a soul extended over carefully from the depths, catching all of his actions. The senses of the soul were extremely powerful, and it was slightly different from regular senses too. At the same time, it was of higher quality compared to the senses of souls of most infinite primes, and it was purposefully hidden. Under these various factors, Sun Ran failed to sense the existence of the senses of the soul. He continued with the actions that he believed were extremely well hidden and could not be sensed by any person or life-devouring beast as he passed through the thick mist silently. His body had become translucent as well. He basically seemed like a ghost. Several hundred kilometers ahead of Sun Ran, Jian Chen stood atop a large tree, also with his presence erased. He raised his head and glanced in the direction that he had come in. His eyes shone with a strange light as he murmured, "I never thought I'd be tailed just for visiting the Two World Mountains, and the person tailing me is the master of a hall. Has he already developed doubts towards my identity?" Jian Chen carefully recalled everything he had gone through recently within the Dark Star race before shaking his head in the end. He dismissed the possibility that he had given himself away. There hasn't been any issues in my actions within the Dark Star race. Even if there is, the 3 Vice Hall Masters of the 5th Divine Hall and Feng Shui of the 10th Divine Hall should sense it first, as they've always been the people closest to Kun Tian. If even they have not sensed anything, then it's impossible for Hall Master Sun Ran, who barely interacts with Kun Tian at all, to notice anything odd. Since there's nothing wrong with my identity, then Sun Ran must be tailing me for some other reason. At this moment, Jian Chen suddenly recalled how Sun Ran had tried to test him using an extremely discreet method when he first met Sun Ran in Kun Tian's disguise. He immediately came to an understanding. It looks like Kun Tian, or perhaps I, possesses something that interests Sun Ran. Reaching there, Jian Chen suddenly sneered. At that moment, a sharp light flashed through his eyes swiftly. He has come at the perfect time. I just happen to be worrying over the lack of opportunities to weaken the Dark Star race, yet Sun Ran has presented me with an opportunity himself. I've already killed one of the Hall Masters, so let's kill another one today. With a flash, Jian Chen left the treetop and continued to fly deeper into the Two World Mountains. Along the way, he did not alarm any life-devouring beasts at all. He flew extremely quickly. Behind, Sun Ran followed Jian Chen carefully. He used a special secret technique of the Dark Star race to cover his tracks, which was why he had not alarmed any life-devouring beasts either. He moved quite quickly too. Before long, the two of them had already ventured 10 million kilometers into the Two World Mountains. They were extremely close to the central region now. That's strange. Why have his tracks vanished here? At this moment, Sun Ran stopped. He scanned around in doubt. Soon afterwards, he closed his eyes and began to use the secret technique as hard as he could to sense for Jian Chen. A while later, he seemed to find something. His expression changed drastically as he immediately raised his head to look at the sky. A blurry figure vaguely hovered in the sky, shrouded by thick, gray mist. He faded in and out, as if he had already become part of the surrounding environment. It was impossible to discover his existence without actively looking for him. Kun Tian. Sun Ran uttered Kun Tian's name in a rather tongue-tied manner. He knew he had been discovered. Right now, hidden in the mist, Kun Tian was staring right at him calmly. The only thing that surprised him was that not only did Kun Tian give off no presence at all right now, but the space there was empty too when he scanned it with the senses of his soul. He could only see him with his eyes. If it were not for the fact that his secret technique could sense Kun Tian's location, he probably would have missed Kun Tian altogether with how he seemed to be fused with the mist right now. Exposed, Sun Ran did not feel awkward at all. He composed himself very quickly and smiled. Kun Tian, since when did you grasp such a powerful concealing technique? You've even managed to elude me. Jian Chen drifted down slowly from the air. He hovered before Sun Ran as he looked at him in a rather strange manner. When I've grasped the concealing technique is not important. What is important is another question instead. Why are you here? If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 2775. Jian Chen strikes under Jian Chen's gaze. Sun Ran immediately felt uneasy, as the gaze made him seem like he was looking at a dead person. This made Sun Ran extremely uncomfortable. Of course, he definitely did not believe he was no different from a dead man in Jian Chen's eyes right now. He still believed that the one standing before him was the fifth hall master. It was just that Kun Tian had lost his memories, which was why he seemed a little strange from time to time. Killing one another was forbidden in their Dark Star race, let alone figures as lofty as the 10 hall masters. Kun Tian, you must know that the city lord of the Dark Knight City, Bai Jin, has already died in the Two World Mountains, so the droplet of essence blood allocated to him has ended up here too. I've obviously come here to retrieve the droplet of essence blood. After all, it ties into the fate of our entire race, Sun Ran said with composure. He really was unable to stand Jian Chen's gaze, so he turned his head and purposefully avoided it, acting like he was observing the surroundings. Oh, so you've actually come for the droplet of essence blood. Jian Chen smiled in a pondering manner. He said, but the essence blood hasn't fallen here. You're traveling in the opposite direction of the essence blood right now. Sun Ran was unflustered. Clearly, he was rather unfazed. He explained, I originally entered the Two World Mountains for the essence blood, but I discovered your traces soon after I entered here. Out of curiosity, I followed you here. Hallmaster Sun, do you really think I'm as easy to fool as a kid? I don't have time to listen to your excuses. Tell me, why have you been tailing me? And how did you find my tracks? Sun Ran was helpless. He wanted to continue quibbling. Kuntan, I don't care whether you believe me or not. Jian Chen ran out of patience. He interrupted Sun Ran violently and growled. Cut the bullsh*t. Ever since I lost my memory, I've become quite short-tempered. It's very easy for me to act rashly. This is the Two World Mountains. Sun Ran, I hope you don't end up forcing me to attack you, or once I alarm those regional king life-devouring beasts, I might be fine, but it'll be difficult to say for you. With that, Sun Ran's expression immediately changed. He did not doubt Kun Tian at all. Recently, Kun Tian had embroiled in a great battle with the 7th Hall Master, Getty, over some petty matters. He had even received reliable news that Kun Tian had actually declared madly that he would never spare Getty if he touched the unimportant outsiders in the 100 Saint City. This matter was no secret among the 10 divine halls. At the same time, it allowed the upper echelon of the Dark Star race to understand something, which was Kun Tian really was capable of doing anything once he lost his temper in his current state of memory loss. This might have been the Two World Mountains, where Kun Tian could alarm all the regional king life-devouring beasts as long as he leaked even a sliver of his presence, but Sun Ran understood that Kun Tian was actually bold enough to do that. Kun Tian has already reached the 6th heavenly layer. Even under the suppression of the Two World Mountains, he's still stronger than me. If he actually lures over the regional king life-devouring beasts, I'll be the one to suffer. I might not even be able to escape from the Two World Mountains. Sun Ran was troubled inside. Before him, Jian Chen saw how Sun Ran remained silent. He had already begun to lose his patience, and his presence had already begun to radiate from his body slightly. His gaze turned into a glare too. Sen Ran was alarmed. He immediately cried out, "Stop, Kuentian. Stop this foolish act. I'll tell you. I'll tell you everything." Jian Chen immediately withdrew his presence. He said nothing more, just staring at Sen Ran coldly. Sen Ran came clean and told him the truth. "Kuentian, your strength increased so much after you broke through in the land of soul destruction, so I suspected you must have obtained some kind of fortuitous encounter there. You entered the two-world mountains for no good reason this time, so I thought it was extremely likely that it had something to do with your fortuitous encounter from the land of soul destruction. Perhaps you had obtained some memories of the planetary beast, and you had only come here despite the dangers under the guidance of the memories. I was curious, which was why I risked my life to see what was going on with you. I hid so well along the way, so just how did you find my traces?" Jian Chen asked again. He had to get to the bottom of this. After all, he had been to the capital city before and had come in contact with many hall masters. If the Darkstar race possessed some mysterious method to plant some kind of imprint on a person without them knowing, then the Darkstar race would be able to discover his true identity once he resumed his identity as Jian Chen. If that really did happen, then all of his hard work and the disguises he had undertaken recently would go to waste. This is because I've also entered the land of soul destruction, and I also had a bit of a fortuitous encounter there. I learnt a secret technique from a small fragment of the planetary beast's memories. I can track anyone who has entered the land of soul destruction with this secret technique. Of course, this doesn't last for too long either. Once it exceeds 10 millennia, the presence that the person has become contaminated with when they entered the land of soul destruction will vanish. Once this presence is gone, I can't use my secret technique on the person anymore, Sen Ran answered. Is there anyone else who has grasped this secret technique apart from you? There isn't. Actually, only a handful of people have managed to obtain a fortuitous encounter in the land of soul destruction. Among our race right now, probably only the Emperor and us have benefited from there. It's just a pity that what I've gained is basically useless. Sen Ran said in pity, I've already shared my secret with you. Kuentian, it's time for you to share your secret. Just what did you obtain from the land of soul destruction? And why have you come to the two-world mountains? Jian Chen sneered. Since you want to know so much, I'll let you know. With that, Jian Chen directly launched a palm strike. Energy surged out of his hand as violently as a tidal wave. It hurtled towards and ran with terrifying power at the sixth heavenly layer. At the same time, his presence erupted in an earth-shaking manner, causing the thick mist in the depths of the two-world mountains to churn violently, like a dragon making the seas churn. Under the effects of the mask, his presence had been disguised as the presence of the Darkstar race. The presence of the Darkstar race clearly received special treatment in the two-world mountains. As soon as Jian Chen's presence appeared, it was propelled by a mysterious power in the mountains, spreading in all directions at an unbelievable speed. It reached every corner of the mountains in a single instant. Growl. Immediately, tremendous roars of beasts rang out from all directions in the depths of the two-world mountains. They were thunderous, and the voices possessed a pressure special to primordial realm experts. There were several dozen of them. With the leaking of a Darkstar race primordial realm expert's presence, all the primordial realm life-devouring beasts lurking in the various regions of the two-world mountains had been directly alarmed. They behaved like they had found their public enemy, like the moment for them to carry out their orders had arrived. At that moment, all the primordial realm experts set off, casting their territorial behavior aside and rushing in from all directions hungrily. At the same time, Jian Chen's palm strike landed on Sen Ran's chest. With Sen Ran's cultivation at the fifth heavenly layer, he was not Jian Chen's opponent even at his peak condition, let alone now, when his strength had been firmly suppressed by the two-world mountains. He was even less of an opponent. With a grunt, Sen Ran was knocked away as he spurted blood. His face paled as half of his chest had been reduced to a bloody mess. He laid on the ground powerlessly for quite a while, unable to get up. Coughing with blood, Sen Ran stared straight at Jian Chen. His face was filled with disbelief and confusion as he stuttered, Kundan, why are you doing this? And your strength. Your strength actually isn't affected by the two world mountains. This is impossible. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2776, Sen Ran's Death, 1. Suddenly, Sen Ran seemed to understand something. His eyes immediately widened as he stared at Kun Tian before him in disbelief. His heart churned. I understand now. Why, you're not Kun Tian at all. Who are you exactly? As he said that, Sen Ran's shock and disbelief reached a startling level. At the same time, he experienced deep fear. The fear was so heavy that it made his soul shudder. It made his entire body tremble uncontrollably. He had already realized that if the Kun Tian before him was an imposter, the imposter would definitely be an outsider. And any outsider older than 1,000 years could not pass through the passageway between the two worlds and step foot into the Dark Star world. However, the outsider who was pretending to be Kun Tian was a 6th heavenly layer infinite prime through and through. As a matter of fact, his battle prowess was even much greater than those who had just broken through to the 6th heavenly layer. What did this mean? It meant that the outside world had produced a 6th heavenly layer infinite prime less than 1,000 years old. And this expert managed to slip into their Dark Star world silently and infiltrate their upper echelon, becoming the mighty master of a hall in possession of great authority. This was simply too terrifying, so terrifying that Sen Ran's fear reached an unprecedented level. You're pretty clever, aren't you? You've seen through my disguise so quickly. Jian Chen's lips curled into a mysterious smile as he said, Sen Ran, do you remember that outsider who made a mess out of Dark Knight City recently? Sen Ran's eyes widened completely. He said in utter shock, So you're that outsider called Gu Qi? Sen Ran had become so shocked that he was speechless. However, he did understand that such a powerful outsider scheming and infiltrating the upper echelon of the Dark Star race was definitely hiding a startling, unspeakable secret. Suddenly, the great ceremony that the Dark Star race was about to hold that could determine the fate of the entire race flashed through his mind. He immediately became extremely nervous. I can't die here. I cannot die here. I have to return. I have to escape from here with everything I have and report this startling piece of news to the Emperor. Sen Ran's eyes immediately became crazed. His life force depleted at an extremely terrifying rate. Not only was his life force being burned away, but even his vital energies had been ignited. He was using a secret technique at the cost of his life. You want to run? Sen Ran, do you still think I'll let you leave here alive now that you know my greatest secret? Jian Chen sneered. He kicked Sen Ran's head, sending him flying from the tremendous force. Sen Ran's soul was heavily shaken up. He felt his head spin as his soul shuddered uncontrollably, as if it was about to crack into pieces. The fleeing secret technique he was preparing to use had been forcefully interrupted. Around him, the thunderous roars of beasts sounded out constantly as the presence of the primordial realm flooded the entire place. Over 40 life-devouring beasts were converging from all directions. They moved extremely quickly. Among them, the fastest one was only a few hundred kilometers away from them. This distance seemed to be quite large, but to a primordial realm life-devouring beast, it would take less than a minute to cover. This was an avian that flew rapidly through the air. It was impossible to describe just what kind of creature it was. It had the head of a huge hawk and the body of a leopard, with 2 pairs of wings on its back, one large and one small. Its wings were riddled with beautiful and fascinating patterns, like the wings of a butterfly. As the 2 pairs of wings fluttered, it kicked up a great gale in the air, causing the mist to surge. It even formed blades of wind that shot off in all directions with incredible sharpness. Many towering trees below had been cut to pieces. The many life-devouring beasts thriving in the mountains and forests all collapsed on the ground, trembling. Behind this strange avian, the ground shook violently and rhythmically. In the mist behind, a colossal figure, standing over 300 meters tall, could be vaguely made out, running along the ground. It was impossible to imagine just how heavy it was. With each step, the ground would shake and the mountains would totter. As it ran along, it collided against everything that blocked its way. Countless trees and boulders were reduced to fragments, as if even the endless mist there would be dispersed by its terrifying power when it made contact against its colossal body. This was a huge primordial realm life-devouring beast. It was truly unstoppable. Wherever it passed by, it would leave behind an empty hole in the mist and environment. It rushed off in Jian Chen's direction, tearing through everything. These two primordial realm life-devouring beasts were the ones closest to Jian Chen. In the surroundings, many more life-devouring beasts gathered over, except due to their varying distances and speeds, they would make contact with Jian Chen and Sun Ran at different times. Sun Ran sensed the rapidly approaching life-devouring beasts in the surroundings too. He was ashen, and despair filled his eyes. He said viciously, "Even if you kill me, you won't be able to live either. You've already become surrounded by many regional king life-devouring beasts. Under their attacks, you won't be able to escape even if your strength hasn't been suppressed by the two world mountains. If I were you, I'd choose to leave this place in a hurry, just in case I become surrounded and die here. After all, this is the two world mountains, not outside." As he listened to that, Jian Chen could not help but scan around. His expression immediately became serious. The strength of the two world mountains could not be underestimated. It was no weaker than the Darkstar race. This time, there were a total of 12 life-devouring beasts above the 5th heavenly layer. This number had already surpassed what the Darkstar race possessed. This was because the Darkstar race only had the 10 Hall Masters and the Darkstar Emperor as people who had exceeded the 5th heavenly layer. And the Emperor rarely showed himself. However, just as Jian Chen's attention was directed to the surroundings, determination immediately flashed through Sun Ran's eyes. In the next moment, there was a thunderous boom, and Sun Ran's body exploded loudly. His tremendous cultivation at the 5th heavenly layer of Infinite Prime had actually turned into a finger 1 meter in length instantly, radiating with startling might. This finger had condensed all of Sun Ran's power. It was the entire cultivation that a 5th heavenly layer Infinite Prime had developed across countless years, all condensed into the finger. As a result, the strength of the finger had completely surpassed the limits of the 5th heavenly layer. It had already reached the peak of the 6th heavenly layer, or even touching the boundary to the 7th heavenly layer. However, Sun Ran was not dead. His body had been destroyed, but his soul remained. His dim soul had been wrapped up in energy, turning into a streak of light and fleeing from the two world mountains as his body exploded. As for the finger that condensed all of his power, it shot towards Jian Chen with terrifying force enough to rip through space. Jian Chen's eyes shone. He could clearly sense an ancient and powerful will within the finger. It was also the existence of this will that prevented the restrictive powers of the two world mountains from touching the finger, allowing the finger to completely unleash its power within the special environment of the two world mountains without weakening at all. "A sliver of the Darkstar race Grand Exalt's will?" Jian Chen murmured. With a flash, he vanished instantly, and when he reappeared, he was already 100 kilometers away. However, his presence had been locked onto, so the startlingly powerful finger of energy turned into a black streak of light in pursuit of Jian Chen. It pierced through space along the way, completely neglecting the distance that existed. It traveled across 100 kilometers in an instant, appearing before Jian Chen. Afterwards, it passed through Jian Chen's body without the slightest obstruction. However, that was just a blur Jian Chen had left behind. His actual body had already appeared another 100 kilometers away through the use of the laws of space. He stood on the back of the primordial realm life-devouring beast that had arrived first, the one with a leopard's body and a butterfly's wings. In the instant that Jian Chen appeared, the life-devouring beast had sensed him, but it was in no shape to pay attention to the figure that had appeared on its back. Its eyes narrowed as it stared straight at the finger of energy that shot towards it with lightning speed as a streak of black light. This life-devouring beast's strength was around the 5th heavenly layer. Faced with a finger that bore a sliver of the dark star race Grand Exalt's will that had already reached the peak of the 6th heavenly layer, it experienced a sense of unprecedented danger. Its intelligence was insufficient for it to realize that the finger was not targeting it, but the figure on its back. Its instincts told it that since the finger was rushing towards it, it was its enemy. Its 2 pairs of wings immediately emitted a dazzling glow. They furled up, forming a huge blade of light that directly cut into the incoming finger of energy. Boom! Within the thunderous sounds, the attack from the life-devouring beast was utterly useless before the finger of energy. It was pulverized instantly, and the finger of energy continued onwards, landing on the life-devouring beast mercilessly with the power of the 6th heavenly layer. The life-devouring beast let out a painful wail. Its colossal body fell out of the air as dark green liquid flowed out of its hawk head. Its entire head had cracked, and the butterfly wings on its back had become extremely tattered. As a matter of fact, a small part of it had become missing, such that the wings were no longer complete. As for Jian Qin, who had been standing on its back, he had already vanished at a certain time. To the other side, Sun Ran's soul rapidly fled outside under the protection of a ball of energy. Even though he had already been reduced to a soul, his presence still leaked out in all directions, allowing all the primordial realm experts to sense him. When he was in possession of his body, Sun Ran could use secret techniques to mask his presence, but now that he was just a soul, he could not disguise his presence even if he wanted to. As such, he became a glowing light bulb in the eyes of all the primordial realm life-devouring beasts within the 2 world mountains. As for Jian Qin, his presence had already vanished completely when Sun Ran's finger of energy struck the butterfly-winged life-devouring beast. I may have lost my body, but that's an attack condensed from my entire life's worth of cultivation. Even if your strength has completely reached the 6th heavenly layer, it still won't be easy for you to block it. By the time you've caught your breath, the regional king life-devouring beasts would have gotten to you already. All that awaits you is death. I might not be able to hide my presence when I'm just a soul, but I've sped up instead. There's no chance for these life-devouring beasts to catch up to me. Kuan-Tian, no, I should say Gu-Chi, you're still lacking a little if you want to kill this hall master, Sun Ran sneered as he fled. He was not pained by the loss of his body at all. The greatest advantage of the Dark Star race was their lack of internal strife, allowing them all to live extremely lengthy lives. As long as their souls remained, they would all have ample time to recover their lost cultivation. I'm lacking a little if I want to kill you? Hallmaster Sun Ran, aren't you overestimating yourself a little too much? But at this moment, a nonchalant and slightly sarcastic voice rang out from ahead. The voice was like the god of death's declaration. It immediately made Sun Ran's soul tremble, as shock, despair, and disbelief flooded his eyes. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2777. Sun Ran's death. Jian Qin silently appeared in front of Sun Ran with his arms crossed, as if he had been waiting there for quite some time already. Immediately, Sun Ran's soul that flew as fast as possible came to a halt. He fearfully looked at Jian Qin, who blocked his path, before fleeing in another direction without the slightest hesitation. He was utterly terrified. He moved even faster this time. His soul seemed to be covered in a ball of fire. As his speed increased, Sun Ran's soul visibly weakened. Now he was truly fleeing in desperation, regardless of the cost. He had already unleashed a secret technique to ignite his soul, just so that he could move even faster. In a split second, Sun Ran's soul had flown several hundred meters away. He was truly fast, immediately pulling away from the several dozen primordial realm life-devouring beasts behind him. Jian Qin could not help but sneer. He did not take off in Sun Ran's direction in pursuit. Instead, the space around him rippled, and under the powers of space, he had already vanished. Impossible, that's impossible. How can you be faster than me? In the next moment, Sun Ran shrieked out several hundred kilometers in the forest, filled with disbelief and despair. Just like before, Jian Chen hovered in the air with his arms crossed right before him, completely calm and composed. He seemed like he was playing a game of cat and mouse. Sun Ran, don't even think about running away in front of me. Let alone the two world mountains, you don't have the slightest chance of escaping if I want to kill you, even if we're in the territory of the Dark Star race, Jian Chen said nonchalantly. With that, he suddenly extended his hand and reached toward Sun Ran's soul. With that, the space around Sun Ran immediately solidified. His soul also became restrained by the space, utterly immobilized there. If he were still whole, he could easily break out of the frozen space with the great power in his body, but now that he was just a soul, he had lost his greatest reserve of power. As a result, he was like a lamb to the slaughter under Jian Chen's restraint. His head was on the chopping block. The laws of space. You've actually grasped the laws of space. Only now did Sun Ran realize why Jian Chen had managed to appear in front of him so many times, even moving faster than when he burnt his soul. He was actually thinking he could escape from a primordial realm expert who had grasped the laws of space. All of it had truly been a waste of effort. At this moment, Sun Ran truly lost all hope. He understood that even if he could move several times faster, there was no chance for him to escape from a primordial realm expert who had grasped the laws of space. Gu Qi, with your strength and talent, you're probably a one-of-a-kind supreme prodigy even within the saints' world that's filled with experts. I don't understand why you would spend so much effort and take on so much risk to infiltrate our Dark Star race with your status. Is it for the various resources your outside world requires? Sun Ran asked in doubt. He knew it was impossible for him to escape. All he could hope for was to die knowing a little more. In the surroundings, the presence given off by the primordial realm life-devouring beasts drew closer and closer. Sun Ran's presence was like a lantern in the dark, indicating a clear direction for these life-devouring beasts, making them rush towards him swiftly. In just a few seconds, Sun Ran would be encircled by the life-devouring beasts. Since you want to know so much, I'll let you die knowing. Do you still remember the divine beast your Dark Star race captured? That divine beast is like family to me, yet your Dark Star race actually wants to sacrifice my family for the success of your great ceremony. I've come to the Dark Star world this time to interfere with your great ceremony and save the divine beast, Jian Chen said emotionlessly. Whenever someone mentioned Sacred Feather, who had gone through torture he still had no idea about, he would be filled with killing intent. Hearing that, Sun Ran fell silent. Only sorrow filled his eyes. A while later he smiled. He smiled rather madly, rather crazily. He muttered to himself, never did I ever think that our great ceremony would fail over a single divine beast after all these years of preparation. These were Sun Ran's last words. After he said that, the frozen space around him turned back to normal. Jian Chen, who hovered before him with his presence concealed the entire time, silently vanished once more. As soon as Jian Chen had vanished, a colossal ape, several hundred meters tall and standing like a mountain, appeared in front of Sun Ran. It let out a deafening roar, directly swinging its hand towards Sun Ran's soul. As the ape swung out, 3 other colossal figures appeared in 3 other directions. They directly locked onto Sun Ran's soul that gave off the presence of the Dark Star race and launched attacks together. The outcome was as clear as day. Sun Ran's frail soul could not even put up a fight before the primordial realm life-devouring beasts. He was crushed to death as easily as crushing an ant to death. Sun Ran died. An esteemed high-level primordial realm expert of the Dark Star race had died in the Two World Mountains so easily. No one even knew about his death. As for the several dozen primordial realm life-devouring beasts that had yet to arrive, they all came to a halt, perhaps because they sensed the expert of the Dark Star race had already died. They subsequently let out roars at the sky. It was as if they were telling one another, but it was also as if they were celebrating over this. For a moment, terrifying roars filled the depths of the Two World Mountains. It even reached the outskirts, which made the many cultivators of the Saints' world who had entered the outskirts to hunt life-devouring beasts uneasy. They had no idea what had happened. However, unbeknownst to Jian Chen, An illusionary figure appeared 10,000 meters above where Sun Ran died. He seemed to have merged with the world, where every single movement of his possessed the charm of the ways, yet also resonated with the ways. Even the special environment of the two-world mountains could not obstruct him at all. No one knew when he had appeared, much less how long he had existed for. However, he had seen the entire battle between Jian Qin and Sun Ran and the process of Sun Ran's death. No one could discover his existence. All of the primordial realm life-devouring beasts and even Jian Qin failed to sense him at all. Even Jian Qin's sharp senses were unable to find anything amiss here. 2 of the masters of the 10 divine halls of the Dark Star race are already gone. Having lost 2 hall masters, the great ceremony will definitely be affected. Combined with Jian Qin, the chess piece hidden within the Dark Star race, who can make trouble at a critical moment, the great ceremony of the Dark Star race is destined for failure this time. The figure let out a great laugh in the surging mist. His laughter was filled with joy, as if the failure of the Dark Star race's great ceremony was extremely important to him. Afterwards, the figure strode away through the air and left this place. Whenever he took a step, the surroundings would change, the world would spin, and even the sun and moon seemed to invert. In the moment before, he was still in the depths of the two-world mountains, but by the time he had taken a step, he had already across an unimaginable distance. He directly left the two-world mountains and even crossed most of the Dark Star race's territory, appearing before the capital city of the Dark Star race. In the end, he vanished in there. Among the 36 major cities of the Dark Star race, Dark Knight City was the closest to the two-world mountains. However, even someone who had grasped the laws of space like Jian Qin would have to teleport to Dark Knight City and then fly at high speed for a while if he wanted to go from the capital city to the two-world mountains. If he did not use a teleportation formation and directly flew over to the two-world mountains, the distance he would have to cross would be several tens of million kilometers at the very least, or even reaching the hundreds of millions. Even with Jian Qin's speed, it would take quite a while. Yet right now, the illusionary figure had used only a single step to traverse this distance. His terrifying speed was utterly unheard of. And, from how relaxed and composed he seemed, like he was going on a stroll, crossing over 100 million kilometers in a single step probably was not even his limit. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2778. Finally making a return in the depths of the two-world mountains several hundred kilometers away from where Sun Ran had died, Jian Qin stood in front of a lake, having returned to his original appearance. His presence was completely withdrawn, such that the many life-devouring beasts hiding within the lake failed to sense his existence. The lake was part of a primordial realm life-devouring beast's territory. However, the primordial realm life-devouring beast had left to kill Sun Ran. It had traveled quite far away, so it had yet to return. And the primordial realm life-devouring beast was not the only beast living in the lake. At the same time, there were many God King life-devouring beasts and ones below God Kings. They remained submerged at the bottom of the lake peacefully, as if they were using their own, special method to cultivate. The senses of Jian Qin's soul spread out. His powerful senses allowed him to see exactly what was going on within the lake. As a matter of fact, even the hole that served as the nest for the primordial realm life-devouring beast in the center of the lake failed to escape his senses. I'll leave Kun Tian's items here for now. Even if experts of the Dark Star race end up finding it here, I can say that I lost it by accident as I fought against life-devouring beasts, just in case these items give my identity away. Jian Qin muttered to himself quietly. Then, the 2 god artifacts that belonged to Kun Tian appeared in his hand. Through the powers of space, he deposited the 2 god artifacts into the center of the lake, within the nest that clearly belonged to the primordial realm life-devouring beast. They were buried within a large pile of rubbish. Jian Qin had already found out that the life-devouring beast that dwelled in the lake was at around the 4th heavenly layer of infinite prime. Under the circumstances of suppressed strength, A sixth heavenly layer infinite prime of the dark star race was indeed unable to deal with such a life-devouring beast. It would be reasonable for him to lose his god artifacts here. Afterwards, Jian-Chen carefully checked through his space ring, focusing on the 30,000 or so stalks of high-grade God King grass. Only after double-checking that they were not imprinted with anything did he leave at ease. Soon after Jian-Chen had left, the Lord of the Lake finally returned to its nest. It was a huge python over 1,000 meters in length. Its body was absolutely colossal. Its large eyes, the size of lanterns, flickered with rather bright light. Life-devouring beasts that had reached the primordial realm would possess some basic intelligence, but clearly it was still nowhere close to a regular person's intelligence. As soon as it had returned to its nest, it sensed that something was amiss. Its huge eyes scanned the area and eventually landed on the pile of rubbish in a corner. Its gaze locked onto the armor and god artifact that had suddenly appeared under the rubbish and tilted its head in thought. Its memories seemed to tell it that these two items did not exist in the pile of rubbish. It was unable to think about anything even after quite a while, so it just stopped thinking about it. It stopped caring about these items that had appeared out of thin air, curling up on the ground and snoring away. On the outskirts of the Two World Mountains, many cultivators from the outside world gathered in small groups, scattered in various places within the outskirts. These people originally wanted to take advantage of the high prices the Dark Star race was offering to kill a few life-devouring beasts and make some money, but now, all of them had completely lost interest in trying to hunt. They all withdrew their presences and hid away carefully, gazing into the depths of the Two World Mountains uneasily. As a matter of fact, there were even a few timid people who had begun to tremble from fright. Their faces were pale as they tried their best to persuade their companions to retreat quickly together. All of this happened because of the shocking roars of beasts from the depths of the Two World Mountains. To these small hunting groups composed of god kings or even overgods at most, primordial realm life-devouring beasts that lived in the depths of the Two World Mountains had always been a mere legend. But today, they had actually heard the roars of so many primordial realm life-devouring beasts at the same time, which immediately frightened the wits out of them. I ain't doing this anymore. If you want to stay, then you can stay. I'm not going to be accompanying you anymore. Just in case those terrifying existences really do emerge from the depths, there aren't even enough of us to serve as a snack. I'm going back. The price offered by the Dark Star race is very tempting, but you gotta be alive first if you want to take advantage of it. If you lose your life, you won't be able to enjoy anything no matter what you possess. The Two World Mountains clearly aren't very peaceful right now, so let's retreat for now. Jian-Chen flew in the direction of the 100 Saints city silently like a ghost. By now, he had already passed through the thick mist and arrived on the outskirts. He immediately discovered large groups of cultivators pulling out of the Two World Mountains. Jian-Chen could not help but sigh at this sight. If it were not for his great strength, he probably would have become a member of this retreating group if faced with this predicament. I'm still not strong enough. Jian-Chen clenched his fists. He knew he was strong enough to run around fearlessly among the Dark Star race, but in the Saints' world and Immortals' world, he was nothing. Unfortunately, he still had not broken through with the laws of the sword, and his chaotic body had been stuck at the 14th layer due to the limitations of laws. If he wanted to reach the 15th layer of the chaotic body, then he had to make a breakthrough with the laws of the sword and reach the partial achievement of Sword Immortal. The laws become more difficult to comprehend the further you go. Every increase will require accumulation over lengthy periods of time. Now that I can't rely on the Fortune Jade pedestal, comprehending the ways won't be as easy as before. I have no idea when I'll be able to reach the partial achievement of Sword Immortal, Jian-Chen thought. He knew that as long as he reached the partial achievement of Sword Immortal, even the greatest expert of the Dark Star race, the Dark Star Emperor who could rival chaotic primes in battle prowess, would not be his opponent. By then, he would even be able to cut down real chaotic primes. The fruit of nurturing ways is my opportunity to break through to partial achievement, but I still can't touch it yet. Not to mention that it's still not completely ripe, such that its effects are nowhere near enough. I'll have to save Sacred Feather first even if I do want to go for it. Jian Chen calculated inside. Sacred Feather's life was still in the hands of the Dark Star Emperor. His life was at the Dark Star Emperor's whim, which made Jian Chen hesitant. Before long, Jian Chen had arrived outside the gate tower of the 100 Saint City. The 100 Saint City was still enveloped by the powerful defensive formation, only leaving the city gates open for entry and exit. Security was very tight at the entrance. The several dozen peak organizations stationed in the 100 Saint City had all sent a few sacrificial god kings to guard the place. They would make every cultivator entering the city undergo the strictest body search. Clearly, the entire city was in a state of high vigilance after going through the disaster caused by the 7th Divine Hall. Even with the 5th Divine Hall stepping forward and offering protection, none of the organizations dared to place all their hopes on the 5th Divine Hall. Jian Chen was in no hurry to enter the city. Instead, he stood outside the city gates and secretly established a connection with the sliver of the power of his soul he had left with He Qianqian. At the same time, He Qianqian was listening to the reports of the recent situation within the city from a person below. Currently, she was in the divine hall that belonged to the Heavenly Crane clan. Suddenly, He Qianqian's expression changed. With a flip of her hand, she took out the divine hall Jian Chen had given her. She immediately sent in the senses of her soul, observing it carefully. In the next moment, He Qianqian's face lit up and became overjoyed. She immediately rushed out of the divine hall despite the person reporting below. Then she contacted Jin Hong before flying towards the city gates. In another region of the 100 Saint City, in the divine hall that belonged to the Dire Wolf clan, Jin Hong currently focused on sculpting a piece of wood. Suddenly, he heard the message from He Qianqian, and Jin Hong's hand immediately paused. A gleam of light flashed through his eyes, and he looked in the direction of the city gates. Gradually, his lips curled into a faint smile, as if he was filled with relief. "Yang Yutian, you've finally come out. I knew you would be fine, and you would definitely return safely. Sure enough, you haven't disappointed me." The wooden sculpture and sculpting blade in Jin Hong's hand vanished. He tidied his clothes before striding out of the divine hall, making his way over to the city gates. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2779, Yang Yutian must die outside the city gates. Jian Chen stood on the side of the main path with his arms across, gazing at the outsiders that flowed in and out as he waited patiently. Almost a minute later, the white-clothed He Qianqian and Jin Hong, who was dressed in extremely simple clothes, appeared on the tall walls of the city simultaneously. Their eyes immediately locked onto Jian Chen, who stood below calmly. Right now, Jian Chen seemed travel-weary and slightly exhausted. His long hair was a bit messy, while his white robes were covered in green splatters and dust. Part of the robes was even slightly tattered. Jin Hong and He Qianqian could recognize with a single glance that the green splatters on Jian Chen came from plants within the Two World Mountains. Combined with his tattered robes and exhaustion, it clearly stated just how tough it had been for him within the Two World Mountains. He Qianqian was deeply touched when she saw Jian Chen in his current state. She knew it was Jian Chen who had stood forward without hesitation when they were being chased by a late God King life-devouring beast, leading it away despite the great danger, thus earning them the precious time to escape. And because of this, Jian Chen had remained in the depths of the Two World Mountains for such a long time. She had no idea exactly what Jian Chen had gone through in the Two World Mountains, but she knew the heavy price the group had paid and the dangers they had faced when she moved through the Two World Mountains with them. She knew exactly how difficult it had been to emerge from the Two World Mountains in one piece. Even a huge group with such great strength had suffered so much, let alone Jian Chen who had traveled alone. Jin Hong leapt off the wall, ignoring the soldiers nearby who bowed towards him and arrived before Jian Chen instantly. He extended his hand and patted Jian Chen's shoulder firmly, laughing aloud. "Yang Yutian, you finally bothered to come out. You even made me think you didn't want to come out of the Two World Mountains." As he said that, Jin Hong's eyes twinkled. Once again, he sensed the power of his bloodline surge and grow reckless from the close contact with Jianqin, as if it had been set on fire, burning with deep desire. It was as if Jianqin possessed something of extremely great importance to him, enough to make the power of his bloodline rouse. Brother Jinhong, you can't say that. I was constantly on edge in the Two-World Mountains. I would have lost my life from the slightest carelessness. It's not that I didn't want to emerge sooner. Instead, I couldn't. Jianqin smiled bitterly. He Qianqian and Jinhong agreed with him. They could guess that Yang Yutian must have been chased down by many life-devouring beasts during the time he spent in the Two-World Mountains, fleeing for his life constantly by using the laws of space. Under such circumstances, he would have no choice but to take many detours. He might have even been forced to loop around any powerful life-devouring beasts blocking his path. When they thought of this, Jinhong and He Qianqian's shame intensified. Yang Yutian, we've really made you suffer. But don't worry. He Qianqian, will make it up to you one way or another for what you've gone through in the Two-World Mountains. He Qianqian arrived before Jianqin too, standing beside Jinhong and thanking him from the bottom of her heart. Yeah. You lead away that life-devouring beast king without any hesitation at all, saving us all. We all owe you a favor. Jinhong, will help you redeem this favor from everyone. Jinhong swore solemnly too. Subsequently, under Jinhong and He Qianqian's personal invitation and accompaniment, Jianqin entered the 100 Saints city smoothly. In the end, he was invited to the Heavenly Crane Divine Hall by He Qianqian. After all, Jianqin was technically still a member of the Heavenly Crane clan. As long as he remained in the world of the fallen beast, his current identity would be tied to the Heavenly Crane clan. In the 100 Saints city, both He Qianqian and Jinhong were figures who bore great influence, as both of them held the greatest status among their respective clans out of everyone who had been sent to the 100 Saints city. They each lead numerous sacrificial god kings, and when the need arose, they could both unleash power at the primordial realm. As a result, Jianqin obviously received the attention of many organizations in the city when both of them personally invited him into the city, catching the interest of all these organizations. They immediately reported this piece of news to the person in charge of their organizations. Immediately, the leaders of the various organizations became stunned and taken aback when they received this news in the divine halls within their respective regions of the city. What did you say? He Qianqian and Jinhong personally received a cultivator outside, inviting him into the city? With their status, just who possesses the right for them to personally receive him? You aren't mistaken, right? It was really He Qianqian and Jinhong who personally received a person from the saints' world outside the city? That's impossible. Who do you think He Qianqian and Jinhong are? One of them is a direct descendant of the Heavenly Crane clan, while the other one is the young master of the Dire Wolf clan. In terms of status, they're much more noble than me. Who's important enough for them to personally receive him? Draw me a portrait of the person. Immediately, a guard began drawing in the air. He used his finger as a brush and energy as the ink, drawing a vivid portrait of Jianqin. This was a piece of cake to any godhood cultivator. It's actually Yang Yutian. That's impossible. Yang Yutian actually hasn't died. He emerged from the Two-World Mountains alive. At almost the same time, the representatives of the various organizations obtained an image of Jianqin. However, following their shock after learning that Jianqin had emerged safely from the Two-World Mountains, they all reacted differently. Amongst the many organizations, the Empire Lotus Sword Sect, the 100 Battle Clan, the Scarlet Light Clan, the Greenfields Clan, the Man Family, the Sun Family, and so on rejoiced for Jianqin's safe return. As a matter of fact, a handful of the leaders, such as Ping Yixing of the Empire Lotus Sect, immediately sent people to prepare a gift after learning about Jianqin's return, personally bringing the gift to the Heavenly Crane Divine Hall. Of course, there were many organizations who remained indifferent. Jianqin's sacrifice in the Two-World Mountains had not gained everyone's recognition. In the eyes of a few prodigies with great statuses who had already grown accustomed to being protected by others, they believed this was what Jianqin should have done. It was as if they believed this was the purpose of independent cultivators. Bang! At the same time, the sound of smashed bottles and vases constantly rang out in the divine hall of the Chu family. Chu Jie was utterly furious. He had completely lost his temper. In the majestic hall, all the ornamental vases and bottles had been smashed by him, and all the furniture had been tipped over. The entire divine hall was a mess. Nearby, a few overgod old men stood in silent fear. They could only allow Chu Jie to throw his tantrum. A while later, when there was nothing else left in the divine hall that he could use to vent his anger, Chu Tian finally stopped. His eyes were slightly bloodshot, but his gaze was shocking. It radiated with killing intent as he gasped heavily. I thought Yang Yutian already died in the Two World Mountains, but not only is he still alive, but he has even returned in one piece. Luck sure is on his side. But that's even better. I'll get the opportunity to personally kill you, Yang Yutian. I could do nothing to you due to the limitations of the environment in the Two World Mountains, but now that we're outside, your life no longer lies in your hands. You're very strong, but no matter how strong you are you supposed to possess the power to rival the primordial realm? Zhou Ji of the Yuqiong clan, Gong Rui's of the Gong family, Zhao Wenbin of the Zhao family, and Kong Fing of the Zhangqiong clan surged with killing intent when they received news about Jian Chen's return. At that moment, the five of them made the same decision. Yang Yutian must die. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2780, Various Reactions in the Heavenly Crane Divine Hall. Jianchen, He Chanqian, and Jin Hong were visited by over a dozen organizations soon after they had returned. Moreover, these organizations were personally led by their prodigies, and they arrived with lavish gifts. These people were obviously all warmly received by He Chanqian. She personally went out, inviting these representatives into the Heavenly Crane Divine Hall. Then, she arranged a banquet to entertain them. Yang Yutian, looks like we've all underestimated you. We never thought you could actually survive for so long in the depths of the Two World Mountains. Your strength and courage are truly admirable. Brother Yang Yutian, it was all thanks to you for standing forward and luring away the late God King life-devouring Beast King back then. If the Beast King managed to make its way into the group, the consequence would be unthinkable with its terrifying ability to devour life force. Brother Yang Yutian, tell us how you managed to escape from the life-devouring Beast King? Did you use the laws of space to completely outrun it? Though you really are bold. The depths of the Two World Mountains are shrouded with mist, limiting your range of vision severely. Even the senses of souls are heavily suppressed. Under those circumstances, you were still bold enough to travel using the laws of space, completely undeterred by the possibility of running into a nest of danger from moving too quickly? Brother Yang, tell us how you managed to survive for all these days in the Two World Mountains, as well as what kinds of dangers you encountered so that we can all learn from you. A large, round table was covered with delicacies as the prodigies gathered around it, drinking and talking merrily. Candid laughter would ring out from time to time amidst the conversations. Jian Chen maintained a smile the entire time, dealing with everyone's questions calmly. As for what he went through in the Two World Mountains, he explained it all by weaving facts with lies. All of the facts were descriptions about the strangely shaped life-devouring beasts in the Two World Mountains. As for any parts that seemed dangerous, he touched on them lightly before moving on easily. Even though Jian Chen had described it with great ease, everyone present understood that the dangers and threats hidden within had completely exceeded their imaginations. After the banquet, the visiting prodigies all took out their gifts for Jian Chen. They wanted to express their gratitude and befriend him. Back in the Two World Mountains, these people had never been so enthusiastic, as even they were uncertain about whether they could emerge from the mountains in one piece. They had also contemplated whether Yang Yutian would end up dying in the Two World Mountains, so they all held back with how they treated him. Now that they had emerged successfully and the path of retreat had already been repaired, their lives were no longer under threat, so they clearly considered a much larger picture. They became interested in roping in a prodigy like Yang Yutian. After all, not only was he exceptionally talented, but he was also extraordinarily powerful. Of course, the true reason why these people were interested was because Yang Yutian was still an independent cultivator. As for the lavish gifts they had given out, they were just some supreme-grade divine crystals, various heavenly resources, pills, and so on. Someone even gave him the notes on cultivation from a 9th heavenly layer infinite prime. After all, Jianchen was just a mid-god king in their eyes. They believed the standard of gifts they had given out would be extremely enticing to any god king, not to mention this was the Dark Star world where resources were scarce. As a result, these gifts became even more precious. Jianchen really was uninterested in any of these items, but given the situation, he could only accept them reluctantly. I think we should hold a grand banquet for Yang Yutian in 3 days' time. We should invite all the organizations of the city to attend, to celebrate brother Yang Yutian's safe return. At this moment, Jin Hong came up with a suggestion. His suggestion made all the prodigies at the table fall into a temporary silence. Many of them were uncertain. They wanted to say something, but they hesitated, as they all felt that Jin Hong's suggestion was a bit of an overkill. In their eyes, they did indeed owe Yang Yutian a favor for his sacrifices in the 2 world mountains. However, favors came in different shapes and sizes. The favor they owed to Yang Yutian was not that big. They believed all they had to do was offer him some benefits. If they did not mind Yang Yutian's lowly identity as an independent cultivator, or they were interested in befriending and roping him in, they would just personally pay a visit like right now at most and thank him out of courtesy. That should have been enough. However, if they were supposed to hold a special, grand banquet that all organizations in the city participated just for Yang Yutian for this favor they owed him, it would indeed be going a little too far. If Yang Yutian possessed a major background, then they would be perfectly fine with Jin Hong's suggestion. However, he just happened to be an independent cultivator, someone without a sect or clan. It made the prodigies seated here rather reluctant to go along with it. All right. That's quite a good suggestion, brother Jin Hong. I, Ping Yixing, will represent the Empire Lotus Sword sect and provide full support in arranging the banquet for Yang Yutian. The silence lasted for just a few seconds before Ping Yixing expressed his opinion first, expressing his complete support of the idea. With someone taking the lead, all the prodigies present could only smile and express their agreement and support. Since they had come here in person, it had already expressed their take on this. They obviously could not change their minds now. First of all, this suggestion had come from Jin Hong. Given that there were no major conflicts of interest, they would never want to offend Jin Hong for no good reason. Moreover, these people were interested in befriending or roping in Jianchen, so they obviously would not want to displease him over something as petty as this. I thank you all for your kind intentions, but you really mustn't. Jianchen tried to decline immediately, but under the persuasions of Jin Hong, He Qianqian, and the prodigies, his objection became rather powerless. As a result, the matter of the grand banquet was decided like this. This news reached the various organizations in the city as quickly as possible. Among these organizations, basically everyone who admitted they owed Jianchen a favor had already gathered in the Heavenly Crane Divine Hall. The rest clearly did not take him seriously. They all believed that Jianchen was supposed to make the sacrifices he did in the 2 world mountains. As such, as soon as they received the news, over half of the organizations sneered in response. What's wrong with Jin Hong? He actually wants to make such a ruckus to hold a grand banquet for a mere independent cultivator, even requesting us all to attend. If it weren't for the fact that he's too powerful for me to be his opponent and he's the successor of a grand exalt, I really should slap him across the face. Jin Hong, oh Jin Hong, do you really think we're still in the 2 world mountains, where you're in charge of everything? We've already taken back the 100 Saints city successfully, so the alliance from before no longer exists. Even if you have the halo of a grand exalt successor, you don't have any power over us anymore. As for this so-called banquet, what a joke. It's as foolish as you can get. Similar responses rang out in the divine halls in various regions of the city. Many prodigies snorted in contempt when they heard Jin Hong's suggestion. Of course, there were some exceptions too. In a completely violet divine hall, a young man sat on the throne in thought, clutching an invitation. A while later, a smile appeared on his face. He murmured, "Jin Hong is clearly trying to befriend Yang Yutian with this, while the dozen or so other organizations are clearly participating because they're interested in Yang Yutian. Though this Yang Yutian person really is quite capable. He can enter here, which means he's under a millennium old. To be able to reach his current level of cultivation at such a young age, he's even more monstrous than those prodigies raised by peak clans in the Saints' world. And he just happens to be so powerful too." Deducing from his performance in the Two World Mountains, Yang Yutian's overall strength probably approaches Jin Hong's. Yep. If I can rope in a person with such monstrous talent into the clan, he'll definitely have grand achievements in the future once he's nurtured by the clan. It'll obviously be a service of great merit for me too as the person behind it all. When he thought up to this point, the young man's eyes lit up. He immediately called out, "Guards, immediately pick out some of the most beautiful women for me. They'll attend the banquet as representatives of our Violet Spirit clan. Tell them that if any of them manage to capture Yang Yutian's heart and gets him to join our Violet Spirits clan, I'll personally put in a good word for her to the Patriarch so that our Violet Spirits clan will focus our efforts on nurturing her. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters." Chapter 2781. News about the ice pole plane within the Heavenly Crane Divine Hall. The visiting prodigies had already left one after another. Only Jin Hong, Jian Chen, and He Chanqian were left inside. The gathering today had already ended, and Jin Hong was clearly thinking about leaving, but he seemed rather hesitant. He glanced at Jian Chen, as if he wanted to ask him something, but he stopped himself in the end. In reality, he had always been curious about what Jian Chen possessed. He wondered why his bloodline would become uncontrollably restless, or even overcome with desire, whenever he approached Jian Chen. This question had bugged him ever since they were in the Two World Mountains. However, none of them had any power over their fates back then. They did not even know whether they could emerge from the Two World Mountains alive, so why would he be in the mood to care about this? As a result, all he did was dismiss it temporarily. Now that he had settled down, he became eager to get to the bottom of this mystery again. However, he, Jin Hong, had his own morals to follow. He hesitated because the thing that roused his bloodline could be extremely important to Jian Chen. If he just asked about it rashly, it would be very inappropriate. It would be if it led to any misunderstandings. He was a member of the Wolf clan. He was born with a sharp sense of smell, and he had gained the legacy of a Grand Exalt, which made his sense of smell even sharper. Through this, he could clearly identify Jian Chen to be someone worthy of befriending, so he had wanted to become Jian Chen's acquaintance a long time ago. He did not want to make things difficult for Jian Chen over something like this either, which would make them drift apart. After hesitating for quite a while, Jin Hong decided to continue hiding the curiosity in his heart. He bid farewell to Jian Chen and He Chanqian before leaving the Heavenly Crane Divine Hall. "Yang Yutian, Jin Hong seems rather interested in you." He Chanqian had noticed Jin Hong's expressions, so she turned around and smiled slightly at Jian Chen. "Perhaps." Jian Chen did not deny it. He obviously knew what Jin Hong was hesitating over. Clearly, he had been drawn to the essence blood from the ancient Skywolf. He knew it was impossible for Jin Hong to know that he possessed a droplet of essence blood, but by being attracted to it, Jin Hong could clearly deduce that Jian Chen possessed a great fortuitous encounter to him. Faced with an enticing fortuitous encounter, regular people probably would have tried stealing it from him already, regardless of the consequences. However, Jin Hong remained calm the entire time, without giving off a single hint of brutality or desire, which instead increased Jian Chen's respect for Jin Hong. In the Saints' world, he had witnessed far too much deception and scheming. At the same time, he had seen far too many examples of people betraying good friends over cultivation resources. Someone as morally upright as Jin Hong was uncommon. At this moment, He Chanqian's voice rang out again, The Dark Star world hasn't been very peaceful lately, so it's best if you don't leave the 100 Saint City for now. The grievances between our city and the 7th Divine Hall has grown. If you were just a regular person, it would be fine. The Dark Star race would not care. However, you're different. With your talent, you'll probably be hunted down the moment you leave the city. Subsequently, He Qianxian took the initiative and told him about what she had roughly gone through after leaving the Two World Mountains. In particular, she went into great detail about the conflict with the 7th Divine Hall so that Jianchen could gain a clear understanding about the current situation. The 5th Divine Hall is only protecting us temporarily, but if we can't produce what the 5th Divine Hall requires, they'll abandon us sooner or later. As a result, before the 5th Divine Hall has actually granted us a promise for protection, it's best if we don't leave the city, He Qianxian said sternly. Her worries for the future were quite obvious from her expression. When he heard that, Jian Chen's expression became rather strange. He seemed to smile. I never thought you'd actually go through so much after leaving the Two World Mountains, much less almost dying to the hands of the 7th Hall Master. But don't worry, I won't leave the city without good reason. Jian Chen continued, Oh right, I heard your Heavenly Crane clan is located on the ice pole plane of the 7 sacred plains. Can you tell me about the ice pole plane, such as what other powerful organizations there are apart from the renowned Ice Goddess Hall? He Qianxian walked over to a chair and sat down. She said in a self-deprecating manner, the 7 sacred plains? That's already a matter of the past. The current ice pole plane is only a sacred plane in name. Even the Ice Goddess Hall that once dominated the entire place has been claimed by some minor organization that even our Heavenly Crane clan did not take seriously in the past. Jian Chen was stunned by that. What? A minor organization has actually taken over the Ice Goddess Hall? I've never seen the Ice Goddess Hall before, but I've heard it's an extremely powerful god artifact. If even a minor organization can claim it, why didn't your Heavenly Crane clan do anything? Don't tell me your Heavenly Crane clan can't even defeat that minor organization anymore? Oh right, what's the minor organization called? He Qianxian broke into laughter. The organization is called the Moon God Hall. It's said that the Moon God Hall did not even have a Grand Prime in the past. Their strongest was the Master of the Moon God Hall, a mere 9th heavenly layer chaotic prime. An organization like that can't even make it into the top 20 in the ice pole plane. In the eyes of our Heavenly Crane clan, it indeed is just a minor organization. After all, our Heavenly Crane clan is a powerful organization that ranks 3rd on the plane. Aside from the Ice Goddess Hall, the ice pole plane has a total of 18 organizations with Grand Primes. It's obvious just how powerful we are to be able to rank 3rd among so many organizations. Even if the Moon God Hall has a Grand Prime now, they'll just be a low-level Grand Prime at most. With the strength of our Heavenly Crane clan, we can annihilate the Moon God Hall with a lift of a finger. When she reached there, He Qianxian showed a sliver of disdain. Clearly, she did not take the Moon God Hall seriously. As for why our Heavenly Crane clan did not take over the Ice Goddess Hall, that's obviously due to a form of respect towards the Ice Goddess Hall. That is the representation of our ice pole plane after all, as well as the glory of our plane. Even though it has already declined, it's still something that cannot be desecrated to our Heavenly Crane clan. He Qianxian's voice became softer and softer. This continued until the very end, when even she did not believe her words. Her eyes flickered. Only after a moment of hesitation did she say with uncertainty, Perhaps there's something that I don't know about going on behind the Moon God Hall taking over the Ice Goddess Hall, as logically speaking, the Ice Goddess Hall is the pride of our ice pole plane, an existence that cannot be blasphemed. Yet in the end, despite so many peak organizations more powerful than the Moon God Hall, none of them interfered and stopped them. Instead, they allowed the Moon God Hall to take over the Ice Goddess Hall. It makes no sense at all. Jian Chen was rather speechless. Originally, he wanted to learn a little bit about the Ice Goddess Hall and the Moon God Hall from He Qianxian. After all, one of these two places was connected to his elder sister, Changyang Mingyue, while the other was connected to Fairy Haoyu. Yet, in the end, he discovered that He Qianxian did not even know as much as him despite being from the ice pole plane. Though it did make sense. He Qianqian was just a god king after all, and she was young. She obviously would not know much about overly secret information. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2782, Releasing the Seal Afterwards. Jianchen asked He Qianqian about a little more, primarily regarding the situation of the Moon God Hall and the Ice Goddess Hall. Unfortunately, he only learnt a limited amount. After all, almost all information regarding the Ice Goddess Hall and the Moon God Hall was a secret. Perhaps Primordial Realm experts might have known a little more, but it would be very difficult for He Qianqian to come into contact with something like this with her strength. Yang Yutian, have you become interested in joining our Heavenly Crane clan, seeing how interested you are in the Ice Pole Plane? With your talent, you'll definitely receive great support if you join our Heavenly Crane clan. Even reaching Chaotic Prime won't be an issue for you in the future. He Qianqian stared at Jian Chen as her eyes flickered. She was no fool. She had already realized Jian Chen's potential back then in the Two World Mountains. With his talent, many peak clans and organizations in the Saints world would obviously try to rope him in. That was because a figure like him could potentially become a pillar of support for the clan at a certain point in the future if he was nurtured properly. He could even grow into a towering existence that supported the entire clan. Jianchen smiled and said, "I don't have any plans on joining an organization right now. Though, I do look forward to seeing the Ice Pole Plane. I really do want to see it with my own eyes. After all, not only is the Ice Pole Plane one of the 7 sacred planes, but I've also heard that it's riddled with ice and snow, snowing all year round. Cultivating in such a cold climate can heavily suppress the growth of inner demons, preventing the risk of suffering from cultivation deviation." Jian Chen and He Qianqian spoke fervently. At this moment, an old, overgod servant of the Heavenly Crane clan rushed in from outside. His face was filled with joy. Young Miss, there's good news. There's fantastic news. The 7th Divine Hall has already removed the seal over the teleportation formations. All of us can freely use the teleportation formations now." The old servant had begun speaking excitedly from a very long way away. His face had already reddened completely, clearly extremely excited. Hearing the news, He Qianqian was left at a loss at first, as if she had yet to react to it. However, she stood up excitedly in the next moment and questioned in a hurry, "What did you say? The seal over the teleportation formations has been released? Are you certain about this?" "I'm completely certain, young miss, completely certain. It can't be wrong. It definitely can't be wrong. There have already been people who have left the Dark Star world through the teleportation formations," the old servant said with absolute certainty. He Qianqian immediately became overjoyed. The teleportation formation in their 100 Saint city was close to being repaired. As such, even if the Dark Star race had not removed the seal over the teleportation formations, the 100 Saint city would not be particularly affected. When they needed to, they could still use the teleportation formation in the 100 Saint city to directly transport themselves to the entrance of the world. However, this was not the true meaning behind releasing the seal over the teleportation formations. Most importantly, it was a gesture from the 7th Divine Hall. Since the 7th Divine Hall was willing to open the teleportation formations for them to come and go freely, it meant the 7th Divine Hall would not be targeting their 100 Saint city for now. They would be safe for some time at the very least. At the same time, it also demonstrated the 5th Divine Hall's determination to protect them. It gave them an understanding of the 5th Divine Hall's power from the sidelines. The 5th Divine Hall really has done it. I never thought the 5th Divine Hall could get the 7th Divine Hall to reopen the teleportation formations so quickly, He Qianqian murmured, but as if she had remembered something, her joy vanished rapidly. She became stern. Though, as for the 5th Divine Hall's demands, all I can do is pass the message on and get the clan to decide on the matter. At that moment, He Qianqian could no longer care about Jian Chen. She immediately took out a feather from her space ring before cutting her finger and dripping a droplet of blood on there. This was a special method of communication from the Heavenly Crane clan, merging the message to be passed on into the droplet of blood and using a feather as a carrier. It was a method no one could replicate. Send someone out immediately and take this message out to the clan. He Qianqian passed the feather to the old servant and ordered. The old servant replied politely before going off to carry out the orders. At the same time, the many peak organizations in the city also received the news of the unsealed teleportation formations. After a moment of joy, they immediately began to pen messages for their people to deliver. Just in case, there were even a few organizations who wrote multiple secret messages and sent many cultivators to carry them out. Immediately, over 1,000 cultivators rushed out of the 100 Saint City. Every single one of them carried a secret message. They rushed to Dark Knight City as quickly as they could before leaving through the teleportation formations there. In the depths of the two-world mountains, a huge swirl of energy hung in the sky. This swirl of energy was the only passageway connecting the two worlds. The passageway was located in the only safe region within the two-world mountains. It was enveloped by a powerful energy, completely blocking out the thick mist and all life-devouring beasts. This place was the personal handiwork of Grand Exalts. It possessed the laws set down by Grand Exalts, which was why the peace here had never been broken across the countless years. At this moment, an ancient teleportation formation that had remained silent for a very long time suddenly lit up with dazzling light near the passageway. Cultivators emerged one after another. They observed the surroundings first. When they spotted the huge passageway in the sky, they could not help but cheer out loud. "We've crossed through the mountains successfully. This is fantastic. We can finally leave. The people of the Dark Star race can't come here. They'll be slain by the power in the space the moment they appear here, which means we're safe now. This isn't a scheme of the Dark Star race. They're really letting us return." Among the cultivators, a portion had been sent over from the 100 Saint City, while the others did not come from the 100 Saint City. They were people teleported over from other cities of the Dark Star race. After all, the several dozen peak organizations of the 100 Saint City only formed a small fraction of the outsiders active among the Dark Star race. Most of them came from other organizations of the Saints' world. They included people from weaker organizations and independent cultivators. After cheering, they rushed into the sky without the slightest hesitation, vanishing into the passageway in the end. On the other side of the passageway was one of the 5 remaining sacred lands of the Spirit's world, the Starsource continent. At this moment, in Starsource City on the Starsource continent, a series of figures floated in the air, either standing or sitting with their legs crossed. They were around a similar vortex of energy that hung in the sky. They gathered around the passageway, radiating with tremendous presences. These people were all experts who had reached Chaotic Prime, and they had made quite the progress already as Chaotic Primes. Most of them were above the 4th heavenly layer, with very few below. If any single one of them had entered the Dark Star world, they would be invincible existences who could run amok freely. Even someone as powerful as the Dark Star Emperor would not be their opponent. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2783. Inside Starsource City, the Chaotic Primes gathered around the passageway amounted to several dozen. They did not talk with each other, either resting with their eyes closed or staring straight at the passageway, as if they wanted to peer through the vortex of energy and directly see what was inside. Of course, there were far more Chaotic Primes gathered in the surroundings than these people on the surface. Divine halls hovered behind them. Every single divine hall flowed with energy and shone with dazzling light, radiating with the might of a powerful god artifact. There were several dozen divine halls, almost all at mid-grade. There were even 2 divine halls that had reached high grade among them. High-grade god artifacts were normally in the possession of Grand Primes. As a matter of fact, even some low-level Grand Primes did not possess such god artifacts. They could already be considered as great treasures in the Saints' world. Some peak clans even used a high-grade god artifact as their clan treasure. That only demonstrated the value and power of high-grade god artifacts. The chaotic primes gathered around the passageway would glance past the two high-grade god artifacts from time to time. Apart from the reverence and fear in their eyes, there would also be a hint of obscurity too as they tried their best to disguise their coveting, greedy emotions. Clearly, the two divine halls had interested many people, but no one tried to steal them. That was because the two high-grade god artifacts belonged to the Dire Wolf clan and the Hao family. To ensure the safety of their young master, Jin Hong, the Dire Wolf clan had even sent one of their ancestors to escort him. He resided in the Divine Hall right now. As for the Divine Hall of the Hao family, it did not contain an ancestor like the Dire Wolf clan, but there was not a single expert in the Saints world who would ever consider taking something from the Hao family. If all the organizations scattered around the passageway right now were summoned up, there would be several hundreds of them. There were peak organizations with grand primes, as well as first-rate organizations that completely depended on their chaotic primes. They gathered there waiting for news to emerge from the Dark Star world. Some of the experts had already become worried or anxious. They had no idea what had happened in the Dark Star world, nor did they have any idea about the situation, as their connection with the Dark Star world had been completely severed already. Even when they sent more people in later, they would be trapped at the entrance due to the disabled teleportation formation, forced to return powerlessly. Many chaotic primes could sense that something was off from all this. The world of the fallen beast had a direct connection to their interests, so if anything happened in there, it would be a catastrophic loss to them and the clans and sects they represented. At this moment, the huge swirl of energy in the sky suddenly surged by a minuscule amount. It was very easy to miss. However, everyone gathered in the surroundings were chaotic primes at the very least. Their senses were so powerful that even the subtlest incident around them could not escape their senses. In that instant, the chaotic primes gathered in the surroundings all snapped their eyes open. Their gazes all gathered on the swirl of energy. Behind them, many figures of all ages and genders emerged from the levitating divine halls. Their presences were as tremendous as the ocean, extremely powerful. In the next moment, a cultivator suddenly fell out from the passageway. The eyes of the chaotic primes immediately lit up with his return, as he was not a member of the group they had sent in for investigation afterwards. This meant he had returned from among the Dark Star race, so he must have been carrying the most recent news about the Dark Star race. Behind, the powerful figures who had emerged from the divine halls all arrived near the passageway in a single step. However, just when they were about to question the cultivator who had just emerged, even more people suddenly fell out of the passageway. In that instant, an endless amount of people returned from the world of the fallen beast, falling out of the swirl like an avalanche. Very soon, the number exceeded 10,000, but there were still no signs of stopping. This sight astounded the chaotic primes, who had spent several months here waiting arduously. Just a moment ago, they were still praying that someone could return from the world of the fallen beast so that they could learn about the exact situation among the Dark Star race. Even a single person would have sufficed. But never did they think that so many people would return all of a sudden, which made them rather flustered. However, they found their own people within the group very soon, so with a sweep of their arms, the power of their terrifying cultivation swept away their people, and they vanished from their previous locations. The return of these people came with the latest news. The organizations who had not contributed to the construction of the 100 Saints City or were unrelated to it were mostly unaffected, but the people from the peak organizations of the 100 Saints City all frowned the moment they received the news. Some of the short-tempered chaotic primes even erupted with curses. They're from a measly, thumb-sized place, and they're still so arrogant. If it weren't for the fact that I can't enter, I would definitely flatten the entire Dark Star race. What? The Dark Star race has actually killed so many descendants of our clan? How dare they? How dare they? They're a tiny race, yet they actually want to offend our Star clan. The Dark Star race has gone too far. That so-called 7th Divine Hall deserves to die. And that 5th Divine Hall, they've actually put forward such a rude request. Do they really think they're a big deal? Aren't they afraid I'll kill them all the moment they come out in the future? The items that the Dark Star race require have reached the God tier. We have plenty of pills and heavenly resources at that level in our clan, and we can even offer quite a lot to them. It's just that none of these items can be brought in. The passageway is limited by the laws of the Grand Exalts. Not a single item that exceeds the limit can be brought in. The fifth divine hall really has given us quite the problem to solve. My clan cannot afford to lose our foundation in the Dark Star race, or it'll be a great loss for us. This clearly isn't something we can resolve. It's best if we report this to our ancestors. The chaotic primes spoke one after another. Apart from their fury, they felt extremely powerless too. In the end, they all transmitted the news back to their clans for their ancestors to decide on the matter. Even the Grand Prime ancestor of the Dire Wolf clan present expressed, "My Dire Wolf clan does possess what the fifth divine hall requires, but we can't bring it in either. It's fine if my clan gives up on our business in the Dark Star race as long as our young master can return safely." On the ice pole plane within the Heavenly Crane clan, their ancestors bathed in a pure white light, obscuring their appearance. They answered, "Contact the clansmen among the Dark Star race and let them know that the clan cannot fulfill the fifth divine hall's request. At the same time, have them do whatever they can to gather the required items during this period of time." After saying that, the ancestor let out a deep sigh. The source water of ways only forms where Grand Exalts have fallen after a series of natural reactions. Without the source water of ways, we won't be able to use some of the functions among the holy grounds of our Heavenly Crane clan to nurture our juniors. That'll be quite the loss to the clan, and the soil of divine blood too. So far, we've only discovered it in the Dark Star world. It's an important material for refining the ancestral blood pill. Without it, the effects of the ancestral blood pill will decrease by as much as 30%. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2784, Creating a New Pill at the Same Time. In a beautifully decorated hall within the Heavenly Crane clan, a ruddy old man radiating with the bearing of an immortal sat on a bed of freezing ice jade. The ice jade bed was clearly extremely cold. The coldness it radiated with made the entire hall seem like a cavern of ice, and it would constantly emit an icy, mist-like aura wrapping around the old man. It only made the old man seem even more sagely. The old man was the first great elder of the Heavenly Crane clan, a ninth heavenly layer chaotic prime. He possessed so much influence that his authority only paled in comparison to the ancestor. Currently, the old man clutched a pure white feather in thought. He murmured, "That's strange. That girl Chanxian is currently in the world of the fallen beast, so why has she suddenly sent someone to ask me about this? This isn't something a mere god king like her should know. But since the girl has specially sent someone back to the clan from the world of the fallen beast for this information, it means she requires it. I don't know why she would need it, but it definitely serves some purpose. So be it, so be it. It's not like it's an absolute secret anyway. If she wants to know, then I'll let her know." Although the Henoplane's ranking had fallen drastically among the 49 planes of the Saints' world with the destruction of the Neptunian Divine Palace a few million years ago, there were still over a dozen peak organizations on the plane. The Jade Pill sect happened to rank second among these peak organizations. This ranking made the Jade Pill sect renowned on the Henu plane. Currently, several chaotic prime great elders gathered together in the Jade Pill sect that wafted with the heavy fragrance of pills. Every single one of them frowned as they discussed among themselves. Their faces were all warped. That'll be difficult, that'll be difficult. The passageway leading to the world of the fallen beast was personally created by Grand Exalts. We possess exceptional mastery over the way of alchemy, and we can create new pills formulas with a flick of the hand. We can even mask countless weaker god tier pills into regular pills with great ease, but something like that can only fool some weaker Grand Primes at most. It's nothing more than a futile effort before the laws set down by Grand Exalts. Then what are we supposed to do? It's not like you don't know about the batch of 12th cycle pills of life and death the heaven-splitting clan of the Nine Clouds Plane and the Heavens sect of planet Kangmeng ordered from our Jade Pill sect. High-level god-tier pills like pills of life and death have never been easy to refine. Even if you ignore the low success rate, we even need to push its effects to the peak, to the 12th cycle. Only by adding some water of life from the Dark Star race do we have a chance at refining pills of life and death of the 12th cycle. If we lose our business in the Dark Star world, it'll be difficult to collect water of life. Yeah. Without the water of life, we won't be able to refine 12th cycle pills of life and death, and we won't be able to complete our deal with the Heaven-splitting clan and the Heavens sect. According to the deal, our Jade Pill sect will have to compensate them on fold. That'll be a huge loss. It's not just the 12th cycle pills of life and death. Many high-level god-tier pills we refine require materials from the Dark Star world. After all, the Two-World Mountains was personally created by the Grand Exalt of the Wood Spirits. Even a blade of grass from there contains extremely high levels of life force. As a matter of fact, some of the heavenly resources even possess some shattered laws of life, which makes them the perfect material for refining various pills. Not only can they increase the success rate, but they can strengthen the effects of the pills too. This has too great of an impact on our Jade Pill sect. This is beyond our abilities. Let's report it to the ancestor. Even if we have to pay quite the price, we have to protect our business in the Dark Star world. Very soon, the two Grand Prime ancestors in the Jade Pill sect received the news, and they immediately emerged from secluded cultivation. After gaining a detailed understanding, they both fell silent. A while later, one of the ancestors said, "We have to protect our business in the Dark Star world no matter what. If we lose the Dark Star world, then we can only rely on other organizations to collect these precious items for us, but with that, our Jade Pill sect will become bound to others. And they'll definitely take advantage of this to extort us greedily. Go and invite the Azure Ink Grandmaster of the Pill King clan, the Pill-worshipping Venerable of the Pill-nurturing clan, and the Soul Pill ancestor of the Ancient Pill sect. At the same time, contact the upper echelon of the Empyrean Demon cult. Our Jade Pill sect is willing to offer a good price for 10,000 pure souls. They just have to be at peak God King. We will create a new pill." The news from the 100 Saints city directly alarmed several dozen peak organizations in the Saints world. The ancestors of many organizations even asked about this matter personally, as they required many of the resources that the Dark Star world produced. As a matter of fact, some special resources were necessities to certain peak clans. Some of these resources just happened to be irreplaceable, and the only place that produced them was the Dark Star world. As a result, the various peak organizations all attached great importance to this matter. But in the end, the majority of the peak organizations were powerless against the Fifth Divine Hall's demands, or they were able to fulfill the demands, but the price was just too great, so great that it had exceeded the value that the Dark Star race could bring for them. Consequently, only a handful of organizations came up with plans in the end, and they carried them out fervently. Of course, only the peak organizations from the 100 Saints city were distressed. All the other clans and organizations who had not joined the 100 Saints city were completely unaffected. In contrast, these organizations even sent in groups of people eagerly, wave after wave, carrying tremendous amounts of divine crystals and various resources. This was because the Dark Star race had announced they required large quantities of divine crystals, tremendous quantities of divine crystals. In exchange, they were willing to offer some precious items. Just as the peak organizations were being riled up by the Fifth Divine Hall's demands, the person behind it all, Jian Chen, was receiving guests at the entrance of the Heavenly Crane Divine Hall. He received representatives of the various organizations who had come to attend the banquet. The banquet was arranged with Jin Hong and He Chanxian in charge and the combined efforts of over a dozen organizations. They invited everyone to celebrate Jian Chen's safe return. Obviously, not everyone in the 100 Saints city came to this banquet. Only 2/3 of the organizations actually attended. Among the 2/3, over half of them had just sent some attendants or envoys to participate as a courtesy, giving Jian Chen words of congratulations. Not a lot of people who held actual importance attended. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2785. The Hao family of the Prosper Plane, the young sect master of the Empire Lotus Sword sect, Ping Yixing, has arrived. The young miss of the Hyman clan, Man Yunjun, has arrived. The young master of the 100 Battle clan, Bai Zhan Xiong, has arrived. The direct disciple of the Heaven sect, Mo Shang, has arrived. At the entrance of the Heavenly Crane Divine Hall, the servants for receiving the guests called out again and again. The representatives of the many peak organizations stepped into the Heavenly Crane Divine Hall. Jian Chen received everyone inside. Even though he knew these people all represented dominant, peak organizations in the Saints' world, he had no idea which organizations were stronger or weaker. He Qian gave a detailed introduction regarding their exact influence and power secretly, as if she was afraid Jian Chen would mistreat them. Yang Yutian, you have to handle these people carefully. You can't afford to offend them, because there was some existences among them that even our Heavenly Crane clan fears. In particular, this person called Mo Shang comes from the Heaven sect, the #1 organization on planet Kangmang of one of the 81 major planets of the Saints' world, because one of their ancestor is a peak 6th heavenly layer Grand Prime, as well as the Lord of planet Kangming. He is someone who possesses terrifying influence. And I've heard a great elder in my clan mention that their strongest ancestor, the Planet Lord, has already tried breaking through to higher levels. Once this ancestor actually makes it to the 7th heavenly layer, the Heaven sect's status will climb by quite a bit in the entire Saints' world. When he heard about the Heaven sect, Jian Chen's heart skipped a beat. He immediately recalled the person called Zhan Yun who called himself a great elder of the Heaven sect he had met outside. And he had heard from Zhan Yun that the Heaven sect had rather close ties with the Myriad Bone Guild. But clearly, the Heaven sect was extremely fearful of the Myriad Bone Guild's heartless child. Young masters Hao Ran and Hao Qin of the Hao family have arrived. At this moment, the receiving servant's voice rang out again. As soon as she heard the Hao family, He Qianxian's expression changed slightly. She was surprised. The Hao family's actually come too, and they've sent the two young masters, Hao Ran and Hao Chen. Yang Yutian, listen closely. If you could afford to offend over 90% of the peak organizations in the 100 Saint City, then the Hao family would be one of the few you can't offend. And the people who've come from the Hao family this time aren't people who bear no influence either. Instead, they're direct descendants of the Hao family. They possess quite the status in the Hao family. Is the Hao family even stronger than the Heaven sect of planet Kangming? Alright, I've heard that the Hao family seems to come from the Prosper Plane. The Prosper Plane is also one of the 7 sacred planes of the Saints' world, Jian Chen asked secretly. He was not unfamiliar with Hao Ran and Hao Chen. When he had first emerged from the Two World Mountains, he had once saved them under the identity of Guqi, helping them avert a crisis. Otherwise, he really had no idea whether the two of them would still be alive. While the battle prowess of these two people were slightly worse compared to He Qianxian, Ping Yixing and the others, their statuses were clearly much higher. Just as he asked He Qianxian, Jian Chen had gone up to receive them enthusiastically. He engaged in some small chit-chat with them, before inviting Hao Ran and Hao Qing into the hall. Fellow Yang Yutian, I've already heard about everything that's happened in the Two World Mountains from Zi Xiaoji. It was all thanks to the existence of a powerful expert like fellow Yang Yutian that everyone could emerge from the Two World Mountains smoothly. Otherwise, even if they emerged in one piece, they still would have suffered horrific losses, and they probably wouldn't have possessed enough power to take back the 100 Saint City. Hao Ran and Hao Chen was amiable. They did not put on airs as they smiled gently. Jian Chen recognized them, but they failed to recognize Jian Chen as Guqi who had once saved them in the Two World Mountains. At this moment, He Qianxian's stern voice rang out in Jian Chen's head. Compared to the Heaven sect of planet Kangmang, the Hao family is indeed much stronger. Even on the Prosper Plane littered with experts, The Hao family is a super organization that no one dares to provoke. This is all because the Hao family produced an extremely powerful ancestor. People revere him as the Yen ancestor. It's exactly because the existence of this Yen ancestor that the Hao family has become such an untouchable organization. That's because not only is the Yen ancestor a 7th heavenly layer Grand Prime, he's also the commander of the divine generals in the heavenly palace of Bishing. He possesses extremely great status within the heavenly palace of Bishing, enough for him to speak directly with the First Majesty. How can you call the Hao family weak if they possess such a connection? Admiration filled He Qianqian's eyes. Even without exceptional personal strength, a powerful background was enough to garner respect no matter where they went. After learning that, Jianchen could not help but glance at Hao Ran and Hao Chen again. He immediately became more attached to them. With his connection to Ming Dong, the Hao family was not exactly outsiders to him. Apart from the Hao family, there's the Heavenly Lightning Clan that you can't afford to offend either. Although the strength of the Heavenly Lightning Clan is similar to our Heavenly Crane Clan at most, or even slightly worse, they also possess a great background. I've heard the Great Elder mention that behind the Heavenly Lightning Clan is one of the 8 Archean clans, the Lightning God Clan. He's warned us sternly to never provoke them. He Qianqian was solemn. None of what she told him was a secret among the peak organizations. It was basically public information, so there was nothing taboo about it. It was just that regular cultivators could never come in contact with something like that. Jianchen was shocked when he reached there. He obviously knew about Archean clans. Even across the entire Saints world, there were only 8 clans like that, and every single one of them had existed for eons. They possessed extremely terrifying strength. That was because clans like that had once birthed Grand Exalts, except the clans survived after the deaths of the Grand Exalts. They still inherited the many supreme secret techniques left behind by the Grand Exalts and the supreme god artifacts used by Grand Exalts. Apart from that, Archean clans even possessed 9th heavenly layer Grand Primes. Only by fulfilling these conditions could they be known as Archean clans. Without any exaggeration at all, there was nothing that could strike fear into Archean clans across the entire Saints world apart from figures of supremacy like Grand Exalts. Even the Heaven-Splitting clan that also possessed a 9th heavenly layer Grand Prime, the Heaven-Splitting ancestor, paled in comparison to Archean clans, because their heritages were on completely different levels. The Heavenly Lightning Clan. The Lightning God Clan. Jianchen memorized the 2 names. Now, he already knew about 2 of the 8 Archean clans that currently existed in the Saints world, which were the Dao Clan and the Lightning God Clan. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2786, Asking for the Pill Formula. The reason why He Qianqian had given such a detailed introduction about the Hao family and the Heavenly Lightning Clan to Jianchen was because they possessed terrifyingly great backgrounds. One had the Heavenly Palace of Bishing, while the other had an Archean clan. However, only the Hao family sent people to attend this banquet among the 2 organizations. The Heavenly Lightning Clan was not present. Of course, aside from these 2 organizations, there were other powerful organizations that the Heavenly Crane Clan feared within the 100 Saint City, but they just paled in comparison to the Hao family and the Heavenly Lightning Clan. He Qianqian only warned Jianchen about them and did not give him an overly detailed introduction. Very soon, the banquet formally began in the Heavenly Crane Divine Hall. As the main star, he was fated to be the most busy today. After giving a speech at the beginning, he walked around with a wine cup with a smile on his face, modestly toasting the people from the various organizations. It did not matter whether these people present today were leaders of an organization or mere envoys or servants. They were guests. As long as they could make it today, it was a form of recognition, so Jianchen obviously would handle them with courtesy. As he did that, many organizations secretly or openly extended a recruiting hand towards Jianchen, offering him numerous, lavish conditions and many benefits for him to join their clans. In short, The offers he had received were so great that they could interest any God King independent cultivator, or even drive them crazy. They were even enough to tempt experts who had just broken through to the primordial realm to a certain degree. Unfortunately, Jian Chen was not a God King, but a primordial realm expert, and not any regular primordial realm expert, but a figure who was so wealthy that he could tempt grand primes. As a result, the offers from these organizations obviously did not pique his interest. He turned them all down with the excuse that he did not want to be tied down. The reason why these organizations were willing to attend this banquet for his sake was mainly because they wanted to rope Jian Chen in. All of them were well prepared. Seeing how their resources were unable to tempt Jian Chen, they all made a signal by glancing. Immediately, many women who had attended the banquet with them stood up. Every single one of them were great beauties who were chosen after careful selection. Both their appearances and figures were the best of the best. With an enchanting smile, they all approached Jian Chen, conversing with Jian Chen gently. Some of these women even tried to accidentally brush past Jian Chen, with their eyes filled with admiration and in a trance. But what hadn't Jian Chen been through already? He remained utterly unfazed from something like this. He seemed composed, shifting his feet gently and avoiding them easily. Jin Hong and He Chanxian took note of this nearby. Jin Hong remained the same as before, but He Chanxian smiled in interest. She said gently, "I never thought Yang Yutian would be more warmly received than I imagined. He's earned the favor of so many large organizations, and they're even trying to seduce him with women now. Some of these women are people who are well versed in techniques of enchantment. They're no good in battle, but they're almost unmatched when it comes to seducing men. I wonder if Yang Yutian can control himself." "Don't worry, Yang Yutian is anything but ordinary. These techniques are all going to be useless against Yang Yutian." Jin Hong remained indifferent. He held the leg of a beast in his hand, wolfing it down. With each bite, dense life force would ooze out. The leg of an unknown beast clearly originated from the life-devouring beasts of the Two-World Mountains. He Chanxian looked at Jin Hong and said seriously, "Young Master Jin Hong, you've assisted Yang Yutian time and time again. I don't think it's completely out of gratitude for what he did in the Two-World Mountains, is it? You're also interested in roping in Yang Yutian, right?" Jin Hong only replied after careful consideration, "I really haven't considered roping in Yang Yutian before, because I don't see how my clan is suitable for him. Though, in my opinion, your Heavenly Crane clan has a very good chance." "Oh, tell me about it? Just what is our Heavenly Crane clan supposed to offer to entice a prodigy like Yang Yutian into joining? If Yang Yutian really joins my clan, it'll be quite the deed," He Chanxian said. There were no organizations in the Saints' world which would give up on monstrously talented geniuses. Organizations could fight over someone like Yang Yutian. Jin Hong gazed at He Chanxian deeply and said, "First come, first served. Yang Yutian's technically a part of your Heavenly Crane clan right now, so how difficult can it be to rope him in? If you personally tried to capture Yang Yutian's heart, you really have quite a high chance." He Chanxian was clearly taken aback, which she then smiled bitterly. "Young Master Jin Hong, I'm different from you. You're already the young patriarch in your clan. You possess an extremely special status, where even your Grand Prime ancestor takes special care of you. As for me, I'm just a slightly talented clansman of the Heavenly Crane clan. My talent is nowhere close to yours, much less my status. The fate and marriage of a clansman like me is destined to be arranged by my seniors in the clan. Even if I get married, my husband will definitely be a member of a large organization with a great background. Yang Yutian and I are people of two different worlds." The banquet ended and the guests dispersed. Very soon, the Heavenly Crane Divine Hall recovered its usual peace. He Chanxian arrived before Jian Chen and seemed to smile at him. There were so many alluring beauties in the banquet. "Has none of them caught your eye?" Jian Chen remained calm. He said seriously, "In my mind, there are only two thoughts, cultivation and becoming stronger. There is no room for the affairs of love. And, as an independent cultivator, I have gone through much more and experienced much more than people like you, born into those large clans. The affairs of love no longer hold much significance to me at all. He Qianqian studied Jian Chen with a strange expression. People have 7 emotions and 6 desires. Even some old monsters who have cultivated for millions or even tens of millions of years are unable to let go of them, still bewitched by them, enough to go crazy for them. You're not even 1,000 years old and you say you've already detached yourself from the desire of love. Is that a flaw in your personality? Or your talent? Jian Chen did not want to dwell on this topic anymore, so he changed the conversation. Basically, all of these organizations possess 100 Tribulations God King pills. Surely the formula for the pill isn't particularly precious, right? He Qianqian's eyes flashed from that. She replied with a question. Don't tell me you're interested in the formula for refining 100 Tribulations God King pills? That's right, I'm very interested in the pill. How can I get my hands on the pill formula? Jian Chen asked. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2787. News. He Qianqian seemed to guess Jian Chen's thoughts. Yang Yutian, hear me out. Don't think about refining 100 Tribulations God King pills by yourself. This pill is nowhere near as simple as you think it is. Really? Then can you tell me in detail just how it's different? Jian Chen was interested. He currently possessed over 30,000 stalks of God King grass, and they were all high grade. In order to limit the strength of outsiders, high-grade God King grass had never been traded away. The organizations in the 100 Saints City probably did not even know about their existence. As a result, he would never reveal the high-grade God King grass before others, just in case it led to unnecessary trouble. However, if he could not refine God King grass into God King pills, they would be useless, and if he wanted to turn them into 100 Tribulation God King pills without exposing them, he had to refine the pills himself. Of course, the 100 Tribulations should be removed from 100 Tribulations God King pills if they were refined from high-grade God King grass. He Qianqian explained. Yang Yutian, do you know why 100 Tribulations God King pills refined from 100 Tribulations grass can allow a regular cultivator to become a God King in such a short amount of time? Why something as wondrous as 100 Tribulations grass has never appeared in the Boundless Saints world, yet it just comes from the miniature Dark Star world? That's because their formation has something to do with the grand exalt of the Dark Star race that died? Jian Chen said. He Qianqian nodded. That's right. The formation of 100 Tribulations grass is indeed connected to the grand exalt of the Dark Star race. Perhaps it's closely linked to the ancient beast that became the Dark Star world too. However, it's exactly because 100 Tribulations grass is connected to experts like that refining 100 Tribulations God King pills from them is anything but easy. That's because 100 Tribulation grass hides a mysterious and powerful energy. Even the great elders of our various clans are unable to explain whether it comes from the grand exalt of the Dark Star race or the vicious beast that became the world of the fallen beast. However, whenever a stalk of 100 Tribulations grass is refined into a 100 Tribulations God King pill, this energy will erupt. It's so powerful that it's well beyond what you and I can withstand with our cultivation. It's impossible to suppress it without a cultivation at chaotic prime, much less refine it into pills. Whether it's our Heavenly Crane clan or the other peak organizations, they all require the combined efforts of 2 chaotic prime great elders in order to successfully refine 100 Tribulations God King pills. You can't refine 100 Tribulations God King pills without a cultivation at chaotic prime. Just refining the pill is so difficult already, not to mention you need to add in various priceless materials too as you refine it. These aren't conditions that an independent cultivator can fulfill. As a matter of fact, many organizations with chaotic primes can't even afford to refine 100 Tribulations God King pills. That's because the cost of refining the pill and the benefits derived are on completely different levels. Only peak organizations like us who possess foundations among the Dark Star race will be willing to expend tremendous effort into refining these pills to protect our interests among the Dark Star race. He Chanxian gazed at Jianchen deeply. She continued, Yang Yutian, I know it's a piece of cake for you to kill powerful life-devouring beasts to exchange for 100 tribulations grass with the Dark Star race. You might even be able to accumulate a large stock of 100 tribulations grass in a short time through this method, but I still hope you will offer these 100 tribulations grasses to our heavenly crane clan, as they're completely useless to you. There is no way you can make use of them. Thank you for explaining, Miss Qian. However, I'm still interested in the pill formula. I'm even willing to use 100 tribulations grass to exchange for the pill formula. May I ask just how many stalks I need for the Heavenly Crane clan to exchange the pill formula with me? Jianchen did not change his mind. It was not like he did not have chaotic primes. He had one in the Tianyuan clan right now. There was him too. If he could make another breakthrough with the chaotic body, he would basically be a chaotic prime. Seeing how insistent Jianchen was, He Chanxian knew any further attempts at convincing him otherwise would be useless. She sighed gently. All right, since you insist on getting your hands on the pill formula, I'll ask about it for you. However, this isn't something I can decide on, and I don't have the pill formula either. I'll have to send people back to ask the seniors in my clan. Afterwards, He Chanxian used a secret technique to pen a message before sending people out to ask the upper echelon in her clan in the outside world. Very soon, the reply from the outside world reached the 100 Saint City. He Chanxian received 2 messages. After looking through them, she told Jianchen rather helplessly, the clan has replied. The clan paid a hefty price in exchange for the formula to refine 100 Tribulations God King pills, and they have an agreement to keep it a secret. Jianchen frowned from that. He never expected the pill formula that almost every organization in the 100 Saint City possessed would actually be so difficult to obtain. This surprised him a little. At this moment, He Chanxian continued, though, I think you'll be interested in the other news. As she said that, He Chanxian took out the second feather and checked the contents with her secret technique. Her expression immediately changed, overcome by shock. She seemed dumbstruck. Only after quite a while did she return to her senses. Her chest heaved up and down, only demonstrating how perturbed she was. She only managed to recover after a very long time. Afterwards, she sank into silent thought before seemingly deciding on something in the very end. With a flip of her hand, a jade slip immediately appeared in her hand. She left some of the information in the jade slip and passed it to Jianchen. At the same time, she said, This is the news I received from a great elder in my clan. Regular cultivators have no right to know this. Once you've read through it, please destroy it. Jianchen accepted the jade slip rather curiously and sent in the senses of his soul. The jade slip recorded a few events that happened on the ice pole plane. In particular, it had a detailed introduction to the Ice Goddess Hall and the Moon God Hall. Nan Patian of the Moon God Hall was mentioned too. In general, it said that the Ice Goddess had already died and her remains were in the depths of the Ice Goddess Hall. Nan Patian of the Moon God Hall and one of the 4 protectors of the Ice Goddess Hall, Wu Han, had already joined the Flame Reverend. The Flame Reverend wanted to get his hands on the Ice Goddess remains, so he attacked the Ice Goddess Hall through Nan Patian, and then he attempted to find the remains through Wu Han. Even though the peak organizations of the Ice Pole Plane understood the Flame Venerable's plans, they were powerless to stop him. As a result, all they could do was sit aside and watch this unfold. Although there were also a few other experts who desired the Ice Goddess remains, they all backed down out of fright due to the Flame Venerable's name. That was because the Flame Venerable was a supreme expert who had reached the 9th heavenly layer of Grand Prime. Even if all the peak organizations on the Ice Pole Plane worked together, they would not be the opponent of an expert like the Flame Venerable. However, Jianchen also learned from the Jade Slip that while the Flame Venerable had schemed for many years, he was still unable to enter the depths of the Ice Goddess Hall, as the Ice Goddess Hall was a Grand Exalt's Supreme God artifact. Even with its artifact spirit missing, it could still block the attacks of 9th Heavenly Layer Grand Primes with its defenses and pure toughness. Destroying a God artifact like that required power on par with Grand Exalts. A few decades ago, the previous daughter of the Moon God appeared silently. She was discovered by the Hall Master of the Moon God Hall, Nan Patian. They engaged in an intense battle. In the end, the daughter of the moon god was heavily injured and captured. At this moment, another piece of news floated through Jian Chen's head, which immediately made his heart tighten. His emotions surged. Fairy Hao Yu has been heavily injured and captured. At that moment, Jian Chen felt like he had been struck by a bolt of lightning. His mind shuddered. Fairy Hao Yu had actually fallen into Nan Potion's hands. With the grievances that existed between Nan Potion and her, nothing good could come out of that. Half a year ago, the Empyrean Demon Lord suddenly descended upon the Ice Pole Plain. The Hall Master of the Moon God Hall, Nan Potion, fled into the Ice Goddess Hall. Afterwards, the Empyrean Demon Lord forced his way into the Ice Goddess Hall alone, slaying 2 saints under the Flame Venerable's command as well as the 3 ancestors of the Hufeng clan. Nan Potion of the Moon God Hall also fell. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2788. He Chanqian's suspicion. When he saw the news at the end, Jian Chen became extremely excited. He was overjoyed. Senior Emotenin actually killed his way onto the Ice Pole Plain, even forcing his way into the Ice Goddess Hall and slaying the fleeing Hall Master of the Moon God Hall, Nan Potion. Nan Potion is a colossal enemy of Fairy Hao Yu. With his death, that's basically revenge for her. I just wonder how she is doing, Jian Chen thought. As soon as he remembered that Fairy Hao Yu's fate was unknown, he became worried. I hope nothing happens to Fairy Hao Yu, Jian Chen prayed inside. He did not have a lot of friends, but Fairy Hao Yu happened to be one of them. Right now, he was so worried for her that he was almost tempted to immediately venture to the Ice Pole Plain. However, Sacred Feather was still trapped, so he was forced to remain in the Dark Star world. This was because everything had already happened on the Ice Pole Plain. If something had really happened to Fairy Hao Yu, it would be very difficult for him to do anything even if he rushed over. However, the situation with the Dark Star race was different. Sacred Feather's fate was completely within his grasp. As Jian Chen worried for Fairy Hao Yu, He Chanqian was greatly perturbed. She seemed like she had been completely shaken up, muttering in a daze, "The 3 ancestors of the Hufeng clan have actually all died. This can't be true. This can't be true." Jian Chen suppressed his worries for Fairy Hao Yu when he heard her and asked, "What kind of organization is the Hufeng clan on the Ice Pole Plain?" On the Ice Pole Plain, the Hufeng clan ranks 4th, right below our Heavenly Crane clan. However, I've heard from the Great Elders that while the Hufeng clan ranks below us, their strength is basically the same as ours, with no great difference. Our Heavenly Crane clan only outranks them because we're stronger in terms of Great Elders, He Chanqian said in a daze. The deaths of the 3 ancestors of the Hufeng clan seemed to have an extremely great impact on her, such that her face paled slightly. Who is the Empyrean Demon Lord? He's actually killed the 3 ancestors of the Hufeng clan. That's 3 Grand Primes. How did they just die like that? That's a difference in intermediate strength. In other words, the peak strength of the Hufeng clan and the Heavenly Crane clan are similar. Jian Chen was not overly shocked by the deaths of the 3 ancestors of the Hufeng clan. Instead, the strength of the Heavenly Crane clan weighed in his mind. Mo Tianyun could easily destroy the Hufeng clan that ranked 4th. In other words, it probably would not be too difficult for him to destroy the Heavenly Crane clan either. I wonder just what Heavenly Layer Senior Mo Tianyun has reached as a Grand Prime, Jian Chen thought. He pondered that for a moment before asking He Chanqian, "Miss Qian, may I ask why you've told me this news?" He Chanqian sucked in a deep breath and slowly calmed down her turbulent emotions. Very soon, she suppressed all of her chaotic thoughts and calmed down once more. An icy presence radiated from her body naturally. "Weren't you interested in the news of the Ice Pole Plain? In order to satisfy your curiosity, I specially asked a great elder in my clan about this. Technically speaking, this information is still something beyond my reach. It's all because I'm in the Dark Star world that the Great Elders have done all that they can to fulfill my needs. That's the only reason why I received this information, He Qianqian said. You're mistaken, Miss Qian. I was only a little curious about the ice pole plane because of the Heavenly Crane clan. How can you say that I'm interested? Jianchen laughed. He Qianqian's eyes flashed. She stared straight at Jianchen as she said seriously, Yang Yutian, I might not be a particularly clever person, but don't treat me like a complete fool. In the 100 Saint City, there are many organizations much more powerful than our Heavenly Crane clan. With your talent and battle prowess, you could easily join an organization more powerful than ours, and you'll be favored no matter which organization you join. Yet, you just had to choose our Heavenly Crane clan. And a few days ago, you asked me about the ice pole plane when you just returned to the Heavenly Crane clan. You said you were just curious and wanted to know a little more about the ice pole plane, but you were completely unaware that your expressions had already sold you out. Back then, your expression was definitely not simple curiosity. Instead, you responded like you cared very, very much. There's one last point. During the banquet earlier today, so many peak organizations wanted to recruit you, even offering you lavish conditions. Any single one of them is tempting enough that a god king born as an independent cultivator would never decline, yet you were completely unfazed. As a matter of fact, your gaze remained as clear as ever. What does that mean? It means that the offers from the clans could not even pique your interest. Am I right? Reaching there, He Qianqian paused. She stared at Jianchen deeply before continuing, Yang Yutian, it definitely wasn't a coincidence when you chose to join our Heavenly Crane clan back then. Instead, you did it on purpose? I'm very curious about the reason why you chose our Heavenly Crane clan. Miss Qian, you're overthinking. I had no reason in choosing your Heavenly Crane clan. If you insist that I did, then that's to find something to rely on in the Darkstar world. After all, I'm just a stranger in a strange place among the Darkstar race. If I continue traveling alone, I might not even be able to take another step further. As for those offers from the clans, I'll be honest with you. Their offers did not interest me. I might be an independent cultivator, but I'm still an independent cultivator who had a fortuitous encounter and obtained the legacy of a primordial realm expert. I obviously possess some resources for myself. And finally, the ice pole plane. I plan on visiting the ice pole plane one day in the future, which is why I've been paying relatively more attention to news regarding it. I want to understand the plane and plan for the future. Jianchen fended her off with composure. He Qianqian did not continue. She simply stared straight at Jianchen with her shining eyes, as if she wanted to see through his thoughts. She clearly still had her doubts over Jianchen's explanation. Jianchen stared at He Qianqian too. His face was filled with helplessness and innocence, as well as a slightly bitter smile. Though, speaking of which, He Qianqian's eyes really were beautiful. Her pupils were extremely bright, and her large eyes were like black gemstones, shining with light that seemed to penetrate the hearts of people. Combined with her alluring, bleak appearance, it possessed a deadly charm to men. At this moment, an old man who seemed to be a caretaker walked in from outside. He reported, Miss, I've just received news. They're inviting all the organizations to venture to the Pantheon Divine Hall. Understood. You can go. He Qianqian withdrew her gaze. She no longer looked at Jianchen, gazing in the direction of the Pantheon Divine Hall at the center of the 100 Saint City instead. I don't care what you say. As long as you're in the Darkstar world, you're still a member of our Heavenly Crane clan. You're forbidden from doing anything that might harm our Heavenly Crane clan. Of course. Let's go. Let's go to the Pantheon Divine Hall. They've summoned everyone there probably because an organization has already come up with an idea to fulfill the 5th Divine Hall's request. It's a pity that our Heavenly Crane clan is powerless against the 5th Divine Hall's request. There might not be a lot of time left before our Heavenly Crane clan will be forced to withdraw from the Darkstar world. Filled with pity and regret, He Qianqian made her way out of the Heavenly Crane Divine Hall with Jianchen and directly headed to the Pantheon Divine Hall. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2789. Ambition in the Pantheon Divine Hall. Over 100 seats surrounded a large table. When Jianchen arrived with He Chanqian, they discovered most of the seats were already filled. Jianchen was familiar with everyone who had the right to sit down. Although he could not exactly name all of them, he had seen them in the two world mountains. This was because all of these people were representatives of organizations. They were not all god kings. They were a few overgods among them. The people he had clashed with in the two world mountains, Chu Jie, Kong Fing, Zhou Wenbin, Gong Rui's, and Zhou Ji, happened to be among them too. When they saw Jianchen arrive, Jin Hong, Ping Yixing, and the prodigies who had a high recognition of him all stood up and clasped their hands at him, giving him a simple greeting. As for Chu Jie, Kong Fing, Zhou Wenbin, Gong Rui's, and Zhou Ji, their faces all sank and their eyes shone with veiled killing intent. Li Qingshan glanced at the five of them deeply before shifting his gaze away, standing behind He Chanqian like nothing had happened at all. Jianchen could obviously sense their killing intent. They hid their killing intent very well, enough to fool everyone present except for Jianchen. They were just 5 god kings. He had never even taken them seriously. After waiting for a while, everyone finally arrived in the Pantheon Divine Hall. At this moment, a middle-aged man who seemed to be in his 40s broke the silence. I've assembled you all here today to discuss the matters regarding the conditions put forth by the 5th Divine Hall. Right now, the 7th Divine Hall resents our 100 Saint City deeply. If we want to remain here, we'll need the 5th Divine Hall's protection, so we have to fulfill the 5th Divine Hall's requests no matter what. When he reached there, the middle-aged man paused for a moment before continuing, I do believe you've all received the response from your various clans. May I ask which clans or organizations are able to complete the mission from the 5th Divine Hall? Yang Yutian. This person is a member of the Heavenly Lightning Clan. Lei is his surname, and his name is a single word, Yun. He's called Lei Yun. As the middle-aged man spoke, He Chanqian introduced him to Jianchen secretly. After Lei Yun finished speaking, Hao Chen of the Hao family said, I can see that you're teeming with confidence, fellow Lei Yun. It is like you have a plan already. Your Heavenly Lightning Clan must have found a method to deal with it already. Lei Yun smiled with that. I really can't hide it from Brother Hao Chen. It's just like what you said. Through the efforts of the seniors of our Heavenly Lightning Clan, we've already found a method to fulfill the 5th Divine Hall's request. As he said that, Lei Yun scanned the crowd. He became rather arrogant and said, May I ask if there's anyone else present who can fulfill the 5th Divine Hall's request? I've received news from our Jade Pill clan that our ancestors have already emerged from seclusion. They're personally creating a pill formula. With their mastery over the way of alchemy, it shouldn't be difficult for them to come up with a pill that hasn't reached God tier but exceeds God tier pills. I do believe the pill should be refined before long, and then it will be delivered to the Dark Star world, said the prodigy of the Jade Pill sect. His eyes met Lei Yun's before both of them smiled mysteriously. Afterwards, no one else in the Pantheon Divine Hall said anything. Many were dejected. Apart from the Heavenly Lightning Clan and the Jade Pill sect, there were actually no one else among the several dozen peak organizations that could fulfill the 5th Divine Hall's request. Seeing that, Lei Yun's smile grew even heavier, as if victory was within his grasp. He continued, We can't let this happen, can we? After all, the Vice Hall Master of the 5th Divine Hall said the 5th Divine Hall will protect whichever organization that is able to provide it with what it needs. Now that only our Heavenly Lightning Clan and the Jade Pill sect can fulfill the 5th Divine Hall's request, wouldn't that mean only the 2 of us can remain in the 100 Saint City safely? Won't the other organizations lose their footing in the 100 Saint City? But we can't let that happen. When we built the 100 Saint City, all of our clans and organizations had put in a lot of effort. If you just leave, our Heavenly Lightning Clan and the Jade Pill sect will be left alone in the huge 100 Saint City. When they heard that, the faces of many of the prodigies present became extremely twisted. There were also other people whose eyes shone, looking at Lei Yun and the prodigy from the Jade Pill sect like they were in thought. I do have a suggestion, but I don't know whether it'll work or not. The prodigy from the Jade Pill sect stood up. His eyes twinkled with hidden excitement as he said, "If, and I say if, there aren't any other clans or sects left in the 100 Saint City, just our Jade Pill sect and the Heavenly Lightning clan, wouldn't that mean the 5th Divine Hall would be able to protect the entire city?" When he heard that, Hao Ran snickered. He stared at the prodigy from the Jade Pill sect rather coldly and said, "So what your Jade Pill sect is trying to say is for us clans and sects that can't fulfill the 5th Divine Hall's request to join your Jade Pill sect or the Heavenly Lightning clan?" The prodigy from the Jade Pill sect smiled. "That's just a thought I came up with. Within the Dark Star world, all of our organizations in the 100 Saint City can join with the Jade Pill sect and the Heavenly Lightning clan and follow us, but once you leave the Dark Star world, you're not bound by anything. We'll still be able to go our own ways." Haha, that suggestion isn't necessarily impossible. Of course, it's just a temporary measure, just something on the surface. This is all just so everyone can maintain their footing in the Dark Star world, for the sake of your organization's interests. It'll have nothing to do with your rankings in the Saints world. Lei Yun chuckled. "You actually want so many organizations to join your Jade Pill sect and the Heavenly Lightning clan such that we'll all have to follow you? Are you out of your mind? How can you think of something like that? Aren't you afraid of biting off more than you can chew and choking yourself to death?" Man Yunjun of the Man family sneered. "Jade Pill sect, Heavenly Lightning clan, how bold of you! Aren't you afraid of offending our 100 Battle clan such that you'll suffer in the future?" Baijan Xiong of the 100 Battle clan sneered as well. His gaze was filled with disdain. "Please watch yourselves, the two of you. If you anger the ancestor of our Hao family, just your Jade Pill sect and Heavenly Lightning clan probably won't be enough to endure our Hao family's wrath." Hao Chen's face sank too, and he wore a cold smile. In short, the suggestion from the Jade Pill sect and the Heavenly Lightning clan basically angered all the organizations present. Everyone responded with glares and sneers. Only very few clans showed interest, remaining quiet. "Please calm down, please calm down. This is just a suggestion, that's all. We had absolutely no intentions of insulting you. As for whether it'll work out or not, it'll still depend on what you think, is it not?" Lei Yun of the Heavenly Lightning clan smiled in a hurry in an apologetic manner. "If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.